All right. Okay. All right. Looks like we're live. Sweet. Close this down. Nice layout on your stream.
Ah, thank you. Thank you, young man.
You'll have to... Oh, I see how you're doing it. Okay.
Yeah. It's just a plug into OBS, or Streamlabs OBS, just to plug in the Google Hangout and just make a little custom layout for it.
That's awesome. I'm going to think about that for our Primecast.
Yeah,
It's all Google Hangout. All right. Hey, guys. How's it going? Is it still private on my end? The video still says private.
I think it's live on my end.
Yeah, so, it's weird, right?
Yeah.
Like, why does it? Hold on. I don't know. Why is my video saying private? That's not what it's supposed to say.
Okay, for some reason, it's not switching back and forth on the Google Hangout for some reason. I don't know why, but even when I talk, but whatever. I can click back and forth, so it's all good.
Well, let me go to my stream on my end and make sure that I didn't screw with the setting.
While you do that, I'm gonna.
It says I'm live. Okay, let me reopen this.
So you're good?
Oh, there we go. Wait, no. Why does it still say private?
Well, while you're doing that, I'm gonna read off some comments in the chat here.
Sure.
So Jonathan Drew says, OJ, we need the 49ers hat. Yeah, man, the 49ers hat. It's actually the person that was helping me with my hair, because you guys know I almost went bald. He told me to stop wearing hats. So so the 49ers hat's not coming back, man, until I have like a full, thick, bushy head of hair like I had in high school, because I could grow an afro, like, you know. So until that comes back, then that's when the hat will come back, when that happens, you know. Until then, you guys are getting short hair, OJ.
All right. Now I think it's live.
Okay, we good?
Yep, I think we're good.
All right, go ahead.
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to this is definitely not Player Essence's first debate over there. But welcome to my first ever hosted debate. It is appearing on both channels. Technically, I'm the one originally hosting it. So I'm hosting a debate between me and Player Essence. We are debating on basically the recent video I made that sparked all this about could Nintendo become the next EA, and my thoughts on all that I gave then. And obviously OJ's on the side that hell no. And I'm on the side that, yeah, it could happen. So before we get into anything, just because I've noticed some trash talking from fans on my side. This is kind of what happens when you have two YouTube channels clashing, two big personalities. There's no love lost like between OG and I, no matter what happens tonight. We feel like we respect each other enough that we didn't need to bring in a third party to moderate it and cut us off if like we're getting too off. We're gonna try really hard not to cut each other off and let each other get our full points in and pass it over. We don't necessarily have timers on this. It's kind of like, all right, here you go, make your point, and then rebuke and just go back and forth, and we see where it goes. I don't have a current time limit on this. We'll see if we can keep it at about an hour, I would think, just for my sake, because I do have another stream I have to do tonight.
And I don't. So and my daughter is spending the night at grandma's. So you know, yeah. I'm doing the shimmy the rest of tonight, guys. Okay, I'm shimmying tonight.
And you're more than welcome to be on my other stream as well. As I mentioned before, we have Primecast tonight, and I have other people.
I'll be watching, but I'm watching Unsolved Mysteries tonight. I'm doing the Unsolved Mystery shimmy tonight.
Gotta enjoy that kid-free night.
Yeah. Oh heck yeah.
Yeah, I'm kid-free tonight too. I don't know how the hell this happened, but I have to work because I was sleeping all day. I don't know if you can tell. I got kind of a cold.
What is work, Prime? I do not have a job, so I'm sorry. I never heard of
right,
that.
Right. Is YouTube really a job? If you love
that's that thing that I used to do, and I always got fired. Yeah, I know nothing about this, Prime.
All right. I guess we'll just get right into it. Since it was my video that sparked it, I guess I'll just kind of give a quick gist of what that video was about, and then we'll let Player Essence kind of rebut some of the initial statements, and then we'll just go from there. So basically, the premise of my side was that obviously Nintendo is not EA right now. Like, that's not even, but that would be a really silly debate. I would lose that in 2 seconds. But my point was that Nintendo is doing a lot of things collectively that could get worse over time if it remains unchecked. Now, whether or not Nintendo's going to check themselves before they wreck themselves, we don't know, because that's a future that is yet to be determined. But I looked at some things they're currently doing. We've actually slightly had this debate one other time on Smashcast about the Smash Bros. DLC. About how my feelings on that on Smash Bros. DLC for Wii U and 3DS, where you're basically paying double price for the game for all of this content that isn't even remotely close to the same value you get for the cost of the game. So I feel like it's just overpriced, very overpriced, and nickel and diming consumers. And it's weird because the bundles for the game cost more collectively than just buying the content individually. Don't know why they did that. That is weird. Don't know if it was always that way. That's just the most recent bundles. There's like 18 or 19 different ways they bundled all the extra content over time, because they did release each character and stage like individually over time. So there's that side of things. There's what they have done with Fire Emblem Echoes. That just a shitstorm. Way too much little pockets of DLC. Like, if people don't want to consider the Smash Bros. DLC microtransactions, I don't know how you can consider Fire Emblem Echoes not one. Like, everything's like $2 each, and it's like a zillion different things. I think there was like 22 different things, and it all adds up like in their season pass to be like $45, which is 30% off of what it would cost to buy it all individually. And the game itself only costs $40, and you're getting like 1/30th of the content for $45. Versus things where Nintendo has done things right, or at least what I view as right. Whereas Mario Kart 8 on Wii U, it was like $16, $20. You get basically another half of a Mario Kart game. Obviously, Hyrule Warriors, I brought that up as an example. I know it's not Nintendo for that, so it's a little bit of a misnomer, because that's just a partnership, and that's more on Koei Tecmo side of things and how they handle the Warrior series. But my feelings, you take what they're doing on mobile. For a lot of people say Nintendo doesn't have loot boxes. They don't have loot boxes in their console games yet. They have it on the mobile side. And the one game they have that is completely built around loot boxes is also their most profitable mobile game. And we have yet to see if that will transfer into something in the future. I'm actually less concerned about the Fire Emblem series, because I think they've clearly done something with Echoes and Awakening, where the next Fire Emblem on Switch, I'm very scared at how they're going to handle DLC on that. But the premise is that obviously everyone knows EA is super, super greedy, super shitty when it comes to the handling of DLC, loot boxes, microtransactions. And for those who don't know the history here, EA technically started their microtransaction DLC stuff with a loot box thing in FIFA with FIFA Ultimate Team. That's how it all started. I put up a random thing, I think like 15 years ago. I wasn't sure the exact date at the time. It was just they started doing it a while ago. And then over time, as profits started to rise from that, they started realizing we need to do more of this. So now that's why there's Madden Ultimate Team. That's why there's loot boxes and practically most things they do today. But beyond loot boxes, they also have little microtransaction DLCs. They also sell expansions that are sometimes way more expensive versus the content you get. EA has been criticized for all of this over the years. And my main point is that most of the time when Nintendo starts to dabble in this, which is more recent, right? It's only been like the last 2-3 years. I guess Awakening, whenever Awakening came out, it's probably my opinion when they first started doing it. I've seen it progressively become happening more and more and more and getting slightly worse. And when that's the case, I worry not so much about what they're doing now, even if I disagree with their pricing. I worry about if we continue to applaud what they're doing, like with Smash Bros., that they're just going to do more of it and get worse and worse with it. So that's my base premise from that video.
Okay. Okay, I've got to talk about this, Prime, because you are so off base. You are so off base with what you're trying to compare to. The problem with EA isn't DLCs, okay? Isn't DLCs and how, like, you're comparing them to EA. The problem with EA is microtransactions, unlimited microtransactions within a game. It's not DLCs. And the problem with comparing them to Nintendo is that Nintendo offers more of a full experience compared to EA. They offer you a great single player campaign with hundreds of hours of content. All of the games that you just named have hundreds of hours of content, while EA is offering you games like, for example, Star Wars Battlefront, the first one. Was there a single player in that game? No single player in that game, but they have a season pass for $50, but they don't even have a single player game. A single player. They follow that up with Star Wars Battlefront 2, and I looked up the research. So you're trying to say that Nintendo could become this. Star Wars Battlefront 2, looking at some of the research that we have here, my guy, Star Wars Battlefront 2, it would take you about $4,000 to buy everything that Star Wars Battlefront 2 has to offer in terms of extra DLCs that they offer. Okay. And you're comparing that to Nintendo with Super Smash Brothers, with the game that already has more content than Star Wars Battlefront will ever have. It has multiplayer, it has all that. And then it already has more content in there on top of that. And everything with the DLCs is optional. It is not intertwined with how you play the game to the point to where other people are going to destroy you because they don't have these certain things. So comparing these two companies, and especially with the prices here, $4,000 compared to Smash Brothers, if you want everything across both games, I think it's $101 if you want everything across 3DS and Wii U. If you don't, it's about $70-something. And the problem with Smash Brothers, what you don't understand, is that Smash Brothers, it takes thousands upon thousands upon thousands of hours to get a new character, to test that character, to balance that character, to patch that character. You don't understand how much time goes into it compared to EA's DLC, which is get Han Solo's gun, okay? Like get Han Solo's blaster. So the fact that you're comparing these two companies is absolutely ridiculous. Now, I thought you made a typo when you first put up your video. I thought you meant Microsoft was becoming more like EA. So before I let you talk, Microsoft is actually the company becoming more like EA. Loot boxes and racing games, Forza Horizon, Need for Speed, they've done it. Extra passes, like, for example, EA Access and also Microsoft Game Pass, they've done it. Funny how EA Access isn't on Sony's platform, but it's on Microsoft's platform. Maybe because they kind of think alike. Another thing that we can talk about here when it comes to Microsoft and them, Microsoft tried to quell used games, right? EA tried to do the same thing back in the 2000s with Madden and their games with the online season pass. And what did Microsoft trying to do? That's why Microsoft and EA are such good buddies, because those are the actual things that you should be connecting, is between Microsoft and EA, not between Nintendo, because Smash Brothers is a contracted thing. They are hired guns. It is Bandai Namco and it's Sora. That stuff's going to be expensive to test and do all that. It's just not going to be cheap to do all that. And I think you don't understand how much goes into a Smash Brothers game and a DLC character. It's not like $1 to make this. It's like literally hours of testing and creating things just for one character. That's why there's not a ton of DLC characters. There's a few different characters in there, and that's it, because it's a lot of work. Sakurai's hand almost fell off. I want to give you a chance to respond, though. I have some more numbers, but if I want to give you a chance to respond to what I said.
Sure. So the big thing, the big disconnect here is, well, for starters, I'm a Nintendo channel, so am I diving into the Microsoft pool or diving into the Sony pool and stuff like that? Because obviously there's more connections you can make with other companies, you know, going down the EA path. My premise isn't that Nintendo today is doing what EA is doing today. And let's bring up an example, because obviously you talked a lot about how you buy a game from like Battlefront and it doesn't feel complete unless you buy the DLC, or in Battlefront 2's case, participate in all the microtransaction stuff. Now, granted, they cut some of that out, brought some back. I'm not exactly 100% clear on where they stand today with what they're doing with it, but neither here nor there. when they started doing the loot box stuff back in FIFA Ultimate Team, did they cut anything from FIFA when they added that mode in?
Did they cut anything from FIFA? I'm not a big FIFA player, but here's what I know about FIFA. If you want to have the best team in FIFA Ultimate Team or the FIFA Ultimate Team, you need about $8,000.
Sure.
You want to have the best team. And another thing that I know about FIFA and what they do there, FIFA, they make it extremely hard. They mess with the game, okay? In order, you have to pay for loot boxes and microtransactions in order to even be competitive. With Nintendo games, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that to be competitive. They give you full experiences. It's not even close to being like, I mean, Nintendo needs to work their way up to Ubisoft. Then they need to work their way up to Activision. And then EA is right there at the next door. They still have a bunch of bosses to go through before they even get anywhere near EA. Like I said, between these two games, between FIFA and between Star Wars Battlefront, that is $12,000 that you could have potentially spent in order to get on top in those games. Whereas you can literally buy every single game Nintendo has released since the Wii U and the Switch for that amount of price and all the DLC. And one more thing before I kind of let you get back into it here. You're looking at Nintendo. There's a reason why EA doesn't do remasters. There's a reason why. It's because they don't want to give people free stuff. They don't want to give people content. You know what I'm saying? That's the reason why they don't do it. They don't want to give people content. Whereas Nintendo, at least, people complain about the prices for games. At least they give you everything with that game. With Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, with Bayonetta 1 and 2. EA isn't giving you remasters. They've done like what? The Burnout, and that was it. They don't want to give you remasters. What? We're going to give them free content? No, we're good. We rather do microtransactions and litter the game and inhibit your progress. And you're even talking about mobile. Have you seen their latest mobile game with the Harry Potter stuff? That game literally throttles your energy mid-game in order for you to pay for their microtransactions. And they did the same thing with Dungeon Keeper. It's just been a complete crap storm when it comes to their mobile. Heck, and even with Nintendo Super Mario Run, it's $9 or it's $10, right, for the game. It's $10 for the game. So even with mobile, they're doing it better. But if you're looking at their main games, it's not even close here. I mean, I can go down the list of games here, like Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It gives you hours and hours of content. Tropical Freeze, no DLC. Kirby Star Allies, free DLC. Mario Tennis Aces, no DLC for now. And Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, free DLC included. Splatoon 2, free DLC for years now. It's going to be multiple years. The Octo expansion costs money, but that's $20. Mario Kart, like you said, is awesome. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is $20 and gives you hours upon hours of content. EA says that single-player games are not, they don't like single-player games. Nintendo says that single-player games are still here to stay. Where is the connection between these two companies? Outside of you complaining about Smash Brothers DLC, which is far cheaper, the Need for Speed, for example, Need for Speed Payback, that game had $50 for microtransactions littered through it, and you had to grind for hours upon hours upon hours to get speed cards. Imagine if they did that in Mario Kart, where you had to grind for 100 hours to get speed cards, and they force you into buying microtransactions. It's not even close, guys. Nintendo is nowhere near EA. It's not even close. That's why I thought it was laughable that you'd even bring these two in the same sentence. Like, I just went through all the games here. I mean, but like I said, I want to give you a chance to respond.
Yeah. So the thing is, when I brought up that FIFA comparison, I asked you, did they cut anything from the game to add Ultimate Team? Because the answer is no, they didn't.
But they
added a mode built around microtransactions and built around the loot box system, and that's fine. Like, that sucks for people who actually, I don't even know if it sucks, because my thing with that, and like, I buy Madden every year, right? Madden has the same thing. They don't cut anything from the game to give you that mode. You could buy Madden and FIFA, never play those modes, never spend a cent. They didn't cut content from those games. Their most profitable games, basically, is what I'm saying. They didn't cut content from it to add in microtransaction-based modes. Now, I'm not saying that I agree with microtransactions-based modes, and I'm not saying that Nintendo is there yet, outside of their mobile game, Fire Emblem Heroes, which, yes, free to play, but then loot boxes, that's how they want to do it. Not really into that. I don't like loot boxes in general. I think they're the plague on gaming. I don't know why the ESRB said they're not considered gambling. I do gamble in real life. I go to casinos once in a while. Let me tell you, it's the same thing. You're just not getting a money value back. At least like when I buy a Pokemon card pack, you might get a card that's worth something and you could sell that if you want. But neither here nor there. Getting back to the actual direct comparisons. My thing is, everything you're talking about is EA today versus what steps EA went to get to today. EA didn't just flip a switch and all their games were like this. There was a time EA had no DLC, no microtransactions, no loot boxes. They were much like Nintendo, released full complete games, 50, 60 bucks, whatever. Prices varied way back in those days, 90s and stuff. But Nintendo isn't at that level. You're right. They're not at Ubisoft's level yet. They're not at Microsoft's level yet. The point of bringing up EA is that EA is that worst case scenario, right? They're the where nobody wants to be. We don't want Ubisoft to get that bad. We don't want Microsoft to get that bad. We don't want anyone to get that bad. But my argument is that if we just keep applauding, and the Smash Bros. DLC is the big one for me. People just keep applauding. You talked about the thousands of hours and the hundreds of hours it takes to make those characters. Well, I'm sorry, I paid 60 bucks and got 45 characters. So why am I paying $5 for one? The valuation there doesn't add up. And on top of that, they spent what, a year or 2 years making all this DLC. I forget how many characters it was. I don't have it right in front of me. And I was like 5 DLC characters or something like that, plus some costumes and then stages, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it was more than 5 DLC characters now that I think about it. I just did the math the other day, and I didn't write down the exact number of characters. I just wrote down how much the characters cost. But it's one of those things to me where Nintendo today, I'm only frustrated in basically 4 scenarios. What they're doing with Fire Emblem, which you haven't even really addressed much.
I'll address that.
Okay, yeah. I hope that you do. Especially the one thing they did in Awakening. And I didn't play Echoes, so I don't know if this happened in Echoes as well. But in Awakening, I remember running into the Outrealm thing on the map and being told, hey, you can't continue unless you buy this DLC. No, that's shitty stuff that they did in Dragon Age Origins. Like, that pissed me off in Dragon Age Origins from EA. And that's a more modern comparison. And that's not, I call it a paywall, whether or not you consider it a paywall, because you can still keep playing. So it's not stopping you from playing. It's just, you can't go that way unless you pay. So that's why in my video, I referenced that as a paywall. And I wanted to bring that up because there were some people in the comments calling me, where was there a paywall in Awakening? Where was there? I'm like, well, by the time I played Awakening, when you got into the single player and you're playing, you ran into the Outrealm gate, and it's like, nope, you have to pay to continue.
The Outrealm gate is where you buy DLC.
But that's the thing. That's
where you get the DLC. It's not part of the game. It's not part of the.
When you're on the map,
go there.
When you're on the map and you're going to the different points on the map, one of those points runs into the Outrealm gate. And the thing is it is not explained to you until you go to it that this is all DLC.
There's no explanation. You go to buy DLC. That's not the same as stopping your progress in a game. It's where you go to buy DLC, because the 3DS has a ridiculous, because people have to build in weird things because the 3DS doesn't support the standard systems of DLC. It's a weird thing that they built into it. That's where you go to buy or get any DLC. It has nothing to do with the single player campaign. You can get 100-something hours out of it. That is where you go to buy DLC.
I said, it's not a traditional paywall. Because, as I said, as I discovered myself, it's not a paywall at all. You can continue. You can go off another way. But my point is, you get to it, and it's like, oh, hey, you want to go here? Pay this. You want to go here? Pay that. Instead of that being separated out from the map. It shouldn't even be on the map. You should not run to anything on the map that tells you, hey,
what does that have to do with being like EA? Tell me where EA says to where you can go and says, this is where you pay for DLC. And then
I just gave you an example. Dragon Age Origins. You're on a similar map. You run into a point and it says, hey, we have this great content here. Why don't you buy it or go the other direction?
That is a complete, here's the problem with that, Prime. Here's the problem that I have with that is that you're literally upset with the way that they built into where you go, a separate thing saying, hey, you want DLC, you go over here. The rest of the game, in terms of everything else, is over there. The fact that you're trying to compare those two and make it into a negative is absolutely ridiculous. That you are saying you are mad because they built in somewhere on the map to where you buy DLC.
So it was okay.
Why are you mad at that?
Was it okay when EA did it?
Was it okay? It was not a problem when EA. No, people are not raging over, oh my gosh, there's a place to where you go to buy DLC. That is not the problem with EA. Question. You do not know what the problem with
this
EA.
Is an important question.
The problem with EA is microtransactions where they throttle you in games in order people can pay to win. They can pay to win. That is the problem with EA. Or they throttle your progression in games like Need for Speed. You need loot boxes in order to, or you need to grind for 1,000,000 hours. That is not the same thing. That is not the problem with EA. Let me address real quick Fire Emblem with you. Fire Emblem, you got to remember, Intelligent Systems split from Nintendo. Nintendo bought them. Part of the agreement or the deals with Fire Emblem or with Intelligent System is that they have their own CEO, they have their own president, or they have their own person who's running it and making prices. They do have that. I'm just letting people know they do have that. With Fire Emblem, you get hundreds upon hundreds of hours of content. I've put over 200 hours of content. Now, they don't do everything up to my point that I would like, but I guarantee you if EA gave you the amount of content in single player games that you could get with like for example, Fire Emblem, and even with the DLC that they're doing, the way that it's priced, that wouldn't be the problem. You remember Dragon Age Origins, or what was Dragon Age Origins, right? Or Inquisition. Dragon Age Inquisition was the game of the year in 2014. People weren't bashing that game. Everybody went out there and bought it. DLC was not the problem. There was no backlash, huge backlash to Dragon Age Inquisition, which was game of the year for many people in 2014. It's a lot like Fire Emblem. So people don't have a problem with Fire Emblem because it's all optional and they give you hundreds upon hundreds of hours of content. Dragon Age Inquisition is not the problem with EA. That game was highly received. It did well. People weren't complaining about that. Maybe there were some people chattering, but it was nothing like the microtransactions built into throttle you while you play. And that's where I have an issue is that you're even coming. It's not even close. Even with Smash Brothers, it's not even close. You paid $60 for the content that you get in there. Everything in there is in there. You don't need the extra characters. It already has 40-something, 50 characters built into there. It has custom moves built into there. If you want the extra characters, you can get the extra characters. And the prices are very comparable to what Bandai Namco, to what Arc System Works, to what Mortal Kombat, Ed Boon, what those guys, it's very comparable to what everyone else does in the fighting game industry. So is Ed Boon like EA? Is NetherRealm like EA as well? Who else is like EA? The whole fighting game industry is like EA. The Arc System Works almost got burned down because of their DLC plan. They announced 20 DLC characters at launch. It's nothing like Smash Brothers. And it was going to be apparently more in terms of the prices. So I don't get this comparison. If Nintendo is close to being like EA, then everybody's close to being like EA. Everyone, then you should make a video saying NetherRealm is like EA, Bandai Namco is like getting close to being. You should literally make one because their prices are very comparable to what everyone else is doing in the fighting game industry. So I don't see the issue here. Like I said, your claim that Nintendo is close to EA is almost baseless. There's literally nothing the only thing that I can see here is that Nintendo has a free-to-play game that does loot boxes, but they do it in a much better way. EA's mobile games throttle you. You can play Fire Emblem Heroes and not buy anything and you'll be fine. You are not throttled by having to buy microtransactions. People like the game so much, so they decide to spend it. But EA has ran into multiple issues with their microtransactions, even in their mobile games where people revolt. Dungeon Keeper was one of them. Look that up, guys. Also, like I said, the new game, the Harry Potter game that just came out, that game's trash, completely trash with what they do. It's not even close. I don't see where this is coming from, Nintendo Prime, and I honestly don't. I don't see where this is coming from.
So here's the thing. Remember what I said at the very beginning? Nintendo isn't close to being like EA. That's not even what I said in the video.
They're not even on the track. They're not even on the track.
But you say they're not on the track.
They're not.
Not on the track would be they don't do any microtransactions. They don't do any loot boxes. But
then everyone's on the track. Then literally
everyone is on the track. But but I'm a Nintendo. Like I don't care about everyone else. I'm talking about Nintendo. Nintendo has good, in my opinion, Nintendo has basically two ways they've done this. They've explored the track that leads to EA, and then they've explored the track that still gives them money for additional content, but is also pro-consumer at the same time. It's more of an everybody wins scenario, where Mario Kart 8, perfect. Everybody wins on that one. Whereas, I mean, that's the biggest example. You can argue that Breath of the Wild is kind of in that same vein. You could also argue it's not, because for $20, some people didn't care about the first DLC pack. Personal, subjective thing. But overall, I think that even though I feel like Master Mode should have been a free edition because they've had hard modes for free before, whatever. They upped the enemy count. They leveled up all the enemies. That's stuff they didn't really do before. They would just make it so you didn't have recovery hearts and stuff like that. So I'll set that aside and say Breath of the Wild, Mario Kart 8, those are practically the perfect examples for how DLC should be done. How, like, well, one thing we have to clarify is I feel like I understand your viewpoint on microtransactions. You view microtransactions, correct me if I'm wrong, as the purchasing of in-game currency to buy something in the game. Traditionally, loot boxes, but other things as well.
Microtransactions are infinite purchases. It's not DLC. Downloadable content is when you pick something, you get that, it's done. You get that Pokemon on Pokken, you get it. That's not a microtransaction. That's just DLC. Now, microtransactions like Fire Emblem Heroes, it's infinite. You can just keep on spending and spending and spending and spending. And EA does that in main big AAA games. Nintendo isn't even close. The closest Nintendo has ever gotten to doing that in a main game is Bravely Default, and that's not their game. They just published it.
That's why I didn't bring up that example.
Yeah, that's the closest they've ever gotten that, and it's pointless. You don't even need it's completely useless. So that's the issue that I see here. To be on the track, I would need to see them get to Ubisoft's level, right? We would need to see like Assassin's Creed Origins that has microtransactions built into it. Do you need them? No. Does it throttle you? Not really, but they're there in a main AAA game. I would need to see multiple games get to that point. I would need to see Nintendo start throttling you in ways to where I can say, okay, well, hold up here. We're being throttled because these microtransactions are making me grind for 15 hours more. I mean, guys, anybody, chat, everyone that we're looking here, we're looking at this, guys. The grand total of Nintendo's DLC for every single Wii U game, or not every single, sorry. Yeah, actually every single, or just say Switch and the Wii U is about $240. Is if you want all their DLC, that's in Smash Brothers as well. That's 100 something. The rest of it is pretty cheap. For all these different games, it's about $243. If EA did this now, they would be applauded. Okay. Back in the day, this is what EA would do. EA would try to take away your used games. They didn't just, it wasn't just like you said, light switch. It wasn't that. EA literally started doing crappy things from the very beginning, taking away modes, taking away single players, doing stupid. This is the stuff that EA does. It's not even close. If EA did what Nintendo is doing right now, they would be applauded and everyone would love them, just like Dragon Age Inquisition is loved by, heck, there's people in my village that somehow convinced me that Dragon Age Inquisition is better than Mass Effect. And I'm a huge Mass Effect fanboy. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to stop arguing now because that's how many people love Dragon Age Inquisition. So if they did everything like Dragon Age Inquisition, people wouldn't have a problem because that game is loved by many, many, many people. So 4,000 guys, Star Wars Battlefront 2. If you want to unlock everything at the beginning, 4,528 hours. 4,528 hours to unlock everything in Star Wars Battlefront 2 or $2,100. You can get you a few switches, hook your friends up, hook a couple girlfriends up, hook your boyfriend up, hook your kids up for that amount. And you can get all the DLC. And you can get all the DLC you want for those games and all the games. EA's trashed here. That's one thing that I know after doing my research. EA's trashed here. And I don't know if there's anything that you can say to hide what EA is doing compared to Nintendo. It's not even on the tracks, my guy. I need to see some more microtransactions come into this.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem. You've addressed almost zero of the things I brought up. You talked about all these things EA does about cutting content. That's not how it started. They didn't start by cutting content. They added things that were specific to DLC and microtransactions. They didn't cut content though to do that. That's not how it started. It didn't start that way.
No, it started
years ago. EA did not cut content for DLC and microtransactions.
Yes, it did. It started by taking away like used games. They started to try to take away people's access. This is greedy, doing dumb things. This is what EA does. They said, we want to see if we want to get rid of used games. Okay, what do we do? Oh, we're going to charge for a season pass, an online. Like they did start by doing that.
You're talking about the used game industry. That's an entirely separate argument. We're talking about what they're doing with brand new games when they release them. There is nothing 15 years ago EA did with cutting content. Cutting content was never originally what EA did. They got to that point. We don't want Nintendo. My whole argument here is Nintendo is starting to do things where they are nickel and diming consumers. Maybe it's not infinite microtransactions, except for Fire Emblem and arguably Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. We didn't really talk about that yet.
Free-to-play games.
But here's the thing. What if they view the fortune? What happens with fortune cookies is in Animal Crossing for Switch?
I don't know. That's a hypothetical. That's not anything.
But what I'm saying is everything I'm talking about in that video is a hypothetical. It's about where Nintendo could go. EA is the worst case scenario, but EA didn't get to there overnight. They didn't start by cutting content. They didn't start by charging people extra money for little, like EA. Okay, we've been focusing on loot boxes because that's the number one thing like EA has criticized. I brought up Dragon Age Origins. You immediately jumped to Inquisition. Didn't even address the Origins thing. Because my question was, did you play Origins? Because I did.
I did play Origins.
I was on the EA forums. I was on NeoGAF at the time. I was on YouTube. I was on all these areas. The number one complaint in Origins was that the immersion was broken in that game by running into something on the map that said, hey, buy DLC. Immersion breaking is not something that should happen. What should happen is the DLC, to buy it, should be in the menu system. Once you're in the game, there shouldn't be anything in the game indicating to you. And this happens with everyone. This isn't just an EA or you know, the case for the Nintendo game. But this shouldn't happen. This shouldn't be something that people accept, and they don't. Like you talked about Fire Emblem, you talked about the value. Did you know that in the Fire Emblem community, Fire Emblem Echoes is one of the most hated games in the Fire Emblem community because of how it handled its DLC?
Let me tell you something. The Fire Emblem community is completely split. Okay, I'm a huge Fire Emblem fan. I go into this. If you talk to one person, they'll say Fire Emblem Echoes is the best. You talk to another person, they'll say Awakening is the best. You talk to another person, they'll say Thracia is the best. The Fire Emblem community is one of the most split / non-organized communities at all. So I mean, I wouldn't.
But why is it split? Why is it split?
They're split because they're split between old school and new school. That's the split between Fire Emblem. How Awakening and On does things compared to the past and how they did things. That's the split between the community. Anything that you hear about, like how DLC or anything like that's a very small amount of the community. Fire Emblem Echoes already gives you tons and tons of content. You don't need any of that DLC. A lot of it's just trash anyway. You don't need the point, OJ. You don't need the DLC. The problem with here's the main problem that I have with your point. The main problem with your point is that you're trying to argue that Nintendo is going to get to that way, or EA somehow got to that way by breaking immersion in Dragon Age Origins with DLC.
That was
or
just one example. That was one example.
That was just one example, but it's an example that you've brought up now a couple of times.
I personally experienced that one.
That's not the problem. That's not how EA got to the point to where they are. It wasn't immersion breaking. That is not how EA. I think your whole premise of how EA got to how they were is not the biggest problem. The biggest where they got to how they were was the mobile industry and seeing how much money they could make off of microtransactions. That's where EA went off the rocker. Okay,
and Nintendo's already in the mobile industry. They just started getting into it. So what's to stop them from progressing that to get worse?
Because they know the difference. They know.
How do you know they know the difference?
Because you look at all the games they've been releasing. Why? If they've been doing DLC now for how many years since the Wii U DLC's been coming out?
They haven't been doing it very long.
But they've been doing it for five plus years now.
Sure, I'll give you that.
They've been doing it, and they've been announcing new games. And those new games, Mario Tennis Aces, Kirby has free DLC. Yoshi's probably going to have free DLC or no DLC. They've continued to make games. They've had interviews. They've talked about this. They see the way EA is, and fans want extra content for these games. They are doing it the right way, and they are making a lot of money off of their normal single-player games because they are doing it the right way.
Let me ask you, is Fire Emblem Echoes DLC worth it for $45?
No, it's not worth it, and you don't need it.
But that's my point. It's still there. If you are going to give that DLC, like if you're going to charge $45 for DLC for a Fire Emblem game, you should basically expect Fire Emblem Echoes 2 in that DLC. Instead, what you got is 1/30th of the content. My argument here, my entire argument with DLC. And by the way, when I asked your definition of microtransactions earlier, it's because I disagree with it. That is one form of microtransaction. Other companies have called microtransactions, as an example, Blizzard Entertainment for World of Warcraft calls microtransactions any small transaction to buy one thing. So you buy a pet for $2. That's a microtransaction. It's a small transaction. It's a way to get little bits of money from people a lot of times over time. That's how I define microtransactions.
But the industry doesn't. But most people define microtransactions as what the mobile games are doing. They don't define DLC
and mobile
as
games do that too. Mobile games do that too.
Okay, but
and
it's
mobile
infinite.
games buy individual things.
DLC is DLC. Microtransactions are microtransactions. We need to make sure that we make a separate cause of this, because you can't call Legend of Zelda microtransactions, because you can buy, like, you can't call that microtransactions.
That's the distinction. The Legend of Zelda DLC isn't a small purchase. That's a $15+ purchase. We're talking $2, $3, $4. Those are dinky little things people don't notice. That's a couple McDoubles at McDonald's. Little charges people don't pay attention to. That's what happened with Smash Bros. We have $4 for a character here, 75 cents for a skin here, $2 for a stage there. It all adds up to $60+, and it's like,
and that's
but they didn't. But what they did is they charged you 60. Now it's as soon as you get everything, but even if you don't, you get everything, $60+. You didn't get $60+ worth of content. You got, I don't know, comparative to the original Smash game, $5 worth of content compared to that. Now, obviously, we have to pull back. Not everyone buys everything, but even then, you never addressed this point. I think it was what, $6 for Bayonetta at the time. Maybe it's $5 now. I can't. Whatever, you pay $5.
If you just want it on one system, it's cheap. I think it might be cheaper than that, but it just depends on the.
Yeah, I think 6 was for both, 4 for each, something like that. Anyways, so you buy the character, $4 for Wii U. Okay, so you're telling me, at least when I get out of this as a consumer, I paid $4 for Bayonetta. So then every character in Smash Bros is worth $4, isn't it? Because they all take that amount of time to balance, to get right, to progress.
That's not how how it works. That's not
how it works for a consumer.
No, that's not how it works for a consumer.
$20 and give you all of it. Like they did with Mario Kart 8. They gave you more content in Mario Kart 8 for $16 than they did for $60 in Smash. And all of it was developed after the fact.
That's because you don't understand the type of difference between a character in Smash Brothers and a track in Mario Kart. Listen.
How much does it cost to make a Smash character?
Value, hold up, time out. What you think is a value, okay? If you spent 1,500 hours using Bayonetta in Smash Brothers compared to, I don't know, Ike, then that $4 was worth your money. You might not use all the, then you can't say each character is worth this amount. This is worth this amount. This is worth this amount. That's not how it works. Everybody has values based.
They have to spend the same amount of time on every character.
No, they don't have to spend the same amount of time on every character. You are not part of the development team.
You're not either. You don't know what they're paying.
I do know that. No, listen. I do know this because there are characters that
are you a Smash Bros developer? Then you don't know. You are assuming.
Let me finish.
Okay.
The reason why I know is because a lot of characters have the same movesets. They don't have to think of completely different things for each character. Link has the same base of how he moves, what they want him to do, and everything. That does not take as much time as developing a brand new character, a third-party character from scratch, like Bayonetta, who's never been in a Smash Brothers game. That is not the same amount of time to develop a Cloud or somebody that is completely different.
What about the new characters they add to the Smash game? That's there in the game when you buy it.
And even still, with that, you just don't like the DLC. It's nothing like EA.
I'm not saying it's like EA. That's my point. This is the nickel and diming EA does. Nintendo's already doing some of it, and I don't want it to get worse.
That's not nickel and diming.
We accept what they're doing now. They're just going to keep getting worse.
Providing you a character that you can spend up to I've seen people spend up to 1,000 hours using Bayonetta. That is not nickel and diming you. Bayonetta was created
but how many hours did they spend with the characters in the game before the DLC came?
We don't know. Everybody's different. That's why value is not assigned to what you think, Nintendo Prime. Value is assigned to the user and what they think. You might not think Bayonetta is worth $4 or whatever, but somebody else who's gonna spend. That's what
I'm talking from a pro-consumer level. If they would just say $20 season pass Smash Bros, all future DLC. That's what they have done with some games. That's like the consumer-friendly way to do it. Develop things after a fact. Give everybody all the content. Because in Smash Bros, as an example, you know how you need to buy those characters. You talk from the competitive space, right? Like you do competitive Smash Bros a little bit. If you're in the competitive space, you have to buy all the characters because you have to learn how to counter it. You have to learn how to counter them. You can't counter them if you can't practice against them.
You don't need to buy all the characters. If you play online,
how to counter? How do you counter if it's not in your game?
If you play online, you'll fight against those characters.
Online is lag. You do not practice professional Smash online. That is bullshit.
Nyra practices online all the time.
Oh, so when you are at a tournament,
How many Smash Brothers? Okay, name the top players in Smash Brothers. Name them.
Mango. I don't know. Whatever the ones Nintendo.
Mango doesn't play Smash 4. He plays Melee. Name the top character. You don't know a single top player, then you're trying to tell me how people practice?
I've been to Smash tournaments. They play it in person on the same system. They're not playing online.
Nairo plays online
competitively.
Nairo plays online. Foe plays online. Zero plays online. Anti plays online. You can't even name the characters. And you're just
online. I'm saying, ideally, you're not going to learn how to counter Bayonetta. Okay, all those players you mentioned, I guarantee they own every single DLC character. I guarantee it.
I know some Nintendo. Pink Fresh didn't even own a Wii U, and he's a top competitor in Smash. He didn't even own a Wii U for years.
But when he practices, whether it's on a Wii U or not, he's practicing with the characters in the game.
And you're talking about the general consumer. You're talking about professional Smash Brothers. How many people are professional Smash Brothers players out of everybody else? You're saying that they have to buy. You don't have to buy anything. You're not a professional Smash Brothers player. You're never going to be a professional Smash Brothers player. So there's no need for you to buy anything if you feel they need it, but you don't. Because they're trying to win money.
You're missing my point entirely.
You're making a horrible point.
The point, I'm making a pro-consumer point. Would you rather pay $60 for all that DLC to have? Like, okay, forget competitive. I shouldn't have went that direction. My point is, I like playing complete video games, right? When I buy a game, I want a complete game. So a lot of games I really enjoy, like Smash Bros. I want to have a complete roster. I want to have a complete. No, it's not complete when there's additional. There's additional characters. You need to buy them to have a complete roster.
The game gives you more characters than any other fighting. Name a fighting game that gives you more characters.
It doesn't matter what they give you. There's still additional characters I don't have because I have to buy them.
Are you trying to tell me that Smash Brothers for $60 is not a complete game? Is that what you're trying to say?
No. What I'm saying is the DLC for $60 is overpriced, man.
But you're trying to say you just said right now that you want a complete game for $60. So are you trying to say that Smash Brothers is not?
No, I never said the initial price of entry isn't worth it. What I am saying is once they start releasing additional content, that content should be consumer friendly in pricing. Instead, what they did is they nickel and dimed people for greed.
Is your opinion on how you value content? Why is that a fact? Why are you trying to push that as a fact?
Because it doesn't matter how you value a content. But here's how it works.
Why are you trying to push your opinion
costs X amount to make. You charge X amount for profits. You can value that content as $5 is worth 1,000 hours.
You don't know how much
Nintendo makes the same money whether you spend. They make the same money whether you play that character for 1,000 hours or 10 hours.
Hey. Here's
the same amount of money for Nintendo.
Listen, you do not know the prices of how much it costs.
Nor do you. What we do know,
and that's why I'm saying I'm not the one saying that it's overpriced. You are.
Yes, I am.
I'm saying that it's priced.
Right. Did they put the same amount of work? Hold on. Did they put the same amount of work into that DLC as they did the full game?
Do you have enough information to know that?
Do you have enough information?
Am I the one who's saying that it's not that it's overpriced or not? I'm saying I will buy.
Look at the content disparity, man. The content disparity is massive. Here's Smash Bros. For 60. Here's DLC for 60. DLC equals 1/30th of the content in Smash Bros. But no, they put the same amount of effort into both. But they can't because they created way more unique stages for 60, way more unique characters for 60, way more modes for 60, and then they charge you all this stuff on the side that adds up to the same price as less content than they already gave you in the game. Even if they straight ported everything from Melee into the game, didn't up-res anything, didn't work on any movesets. If you look at the pure amount of new characters, new stages, new costumes for $60 for that full game, versus DLC with new characters, new costumes, new stages, you're getting shat on in comparison, man. Not even close.
Why do you think that you need to buy everything? You are not.
It's not about buying everything. It's about
you pay for the game is worth it. The DLC that you want, if you want to pick and choose, is worth whatever you want to pay. You are making it seem as if Nintendo is putting a gun to your head and saying pro-consumer.
It's comparative values. It's comparative. It's pricing valuation. It's economic.
You don't care about
one. It's they are making a shitload more money off of you.
Listen.
DLC than
the problem is that you are injecting your own opinion into
It's not an opinion, it's a fact.
No, it's not a fact.
For less
if you don't use half the characters, then you didn't get your value then. If you don't use half the characters, then by your base, then all of a sudden each character is worth this.
They increase the value of the game after the fact.
And how does this relate to? How does this get to EA? Tell me where EA has done.
EA nickels and dimes consumers, right? You talked about the unlimited microtransactions. Nintendo has that in mobile games. We'll see if that gets worse anywhere else. My point is that we are accepting the fact that they are charging you in totality more for this DLC than for the original base game. That should not be allowed, man.
Can I tell you why?
Individual pieces. Those individual pieces, value-wise, is worth more than an individual piece of Smash Bros.
Calm down. The reason why people accept Smash Brothers
just getting hyped over here, getting hyped.
Because they realize that whatever they want to buy is worth the amount of man hours and content. Value is considered by the consumer. People aren't doing arithmetic to figure out each character and basing, okay, this is worth 3, this is worth 2, this is worth 4. I think each character is split up. That is not how games are. That's not how DLC is. That's not how anything is. That's not how any consumer puts in. A consumer gets their base game. They get plenty of content for what they want, and they consider the value for whatever DLC that they're going to buy. If they're going to put 5,000 hours into Bayonetta, then it's more than worth the value. It doesn't matter if the game has 40 characters. It's based on the consumer, each individual consumer, and what they want. The problem with your argument here is that you're complaining about Smash Brothers, but Smash Brothers still, with all the DLC, doesn't even compare to EA. It's not even close to being EA.
Because Nintendo's not EA today.
But there are a million other developers that have done this before with DLC, and they're not close to being EA. And it's been how many years now? Mortal Kombat has been for how many years? There's been DLC in that in terms of how they price the DLC for how many years. And Mortal Kombat NetherRealm is not EA. There are multiple other fighting game developers that are not EA or not close to being EA that have done the same thing, if not more.
What EA fighting game?
And they're not close to being EA. You're trying to say that Smash Brothers, which is a contracted out game from expensive hired hands in Sakurai and in Bandai Namco, is somehow saying that Nintendo is going to turn into EA is absolutely ridiculous, because
it's not just Smash.
By a third-party developer. Smash Brothers is developed by Bandai Namco, and it's contracted by Sora. They are not cheap. It is not cheap to do what they do. That's the reason why Smash Brothers has a DLC it does. Whereas Mario Kart, handled in-house, they can do some extra tracks. But I can guarantee you, extra tracks in Mario Kart and some skins and like playing as like, I don't know, like Mega Man with a Mega Man helmet, that does not take nowhere near the amount of time as Smash Brothers. So it's priced accordingly. Okay.
You don't know Mario Kart 8 DLC's pricing compared to what it took to develop the pricing of Smash. But you don't know. You're not a developer. You don't know what Nintendo's paying.
No, I do know. Because I know here's common sense. Here's common sense.
That's common sense. It's not knowledge.
Common sense says that a fighting game character that you need to put balance patches, that you need to take time, and from what Sakurai said, takes a lot more time than making a model of a character and plopping him into a cart. You don't need to balance Mario Kart's characters.
He never commented on Mario Kart.
They have no stats. Mario Kart characters have no stats.
They do have stats.
They don't have stats. Like,
then why do the stats of every single card adjust?
They have a weight class. The cards have a weight class, and that's it. They don't have intrinsic stats like Smash Brothers. They don't have moves like Smash Brothers. I can guarantee you, based on what Sakurai said, that it takes a lot more money and time to develop a Smash Brothers character.
Well, here's the thing: you're making a guarantee on something we're never going to know.
Now you're being ridiculous, Nick. Now you're being ridiculous. You're being ridiculous because you're trying to sit here and tell me that a Yoshi skin, that a bunch of shy guys take as much time as a Ryu or a Cloud.
You don't know. You are talking from a hypothetical.
I am talking from a paid money standpoint. Time equals money, and
I'm talking from a pro-consumer standpoint. $60 in DLC does not equal Smash Bros for $60. As a pro-consumer, here's the thing: you're like blindly accepting this and defending a pro-business model.
I'm not blindly accepting anything.
Then how is $60 for
as my own opinion? Here's the thing: my own opinion doesn't have to be your opinion. Your opinion is that it's not pro-consumer. My opinion is that, damn, these guys work really hard on these characters. Sakurai almost lost his hand. I'm going to use this character for 700 hours.
By the way,
I feel that Ryu is worth more than 15 other characters in the game, because I am going to use this character. I am going to get value out of this character. No, I do not treat all characters in Smash Brothers equally. No, just like Tweak is probably saying, man, like I've made like $30,000 off of playing with Bayonetta, or what's it called?
Sure.
Sam Sora, or any of these pro players that use Bayonetta, Captain Zach. They're like, you know what? That was worth my $4 because I don't use half the cast, and Bayonetta's my main, and I've won majors with Bayonetta. So everybody's not going to blindly accept your point of view because they see value differently, and that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to push your mindset onto everyone else when it comes to Smash Brothers, and it's not working. Because people value Smash Brothers differently than you do. You're a casual. You don't play it the way that other people play it. Okay. You don't play the way people. So stop trying to push your mindset on others. People value things more than others.
My mindset is an objective viewpoint of value of content versus what is delivered for price. That's all I'm doing. I'm not telling you individually Bayonetta is not worth the money for you as a person. I'm not telling people how to spend their money. If they want to buy these characters and these stages and this DLC because it feels worth the value to them, that is fine. What I'm saying is there is a disparity in valuation across what Nintendo is doing.
That's your opinion.
It's not an opinion. It's a fact.
It is opinion.
Because you get more content in Mario Kart 8 for $20 than you do for $50 in Smash. That's not even because I like the content. I'm not even saying I like the content in Mario Kart 8 better. It's a valuation of you get twice the game for $20.
The game isn't as in depth as Smash. You are comparing apples and oranges.
So Smash Bros cost more than $60 then.
Apples and oranges. You're trying to compare Mario Kart.
They're both $60 games. Should Smash Bros cost more than $60 if it's worth more than Mario Kart?
They're both $60. That's how Nintendo prices it. That's their models. They don't price it based.
That's the model that consumers have to look at. I'm looking at this as a consumer. You are getting a half. You're getting Mario Kart 8.5 for $20. You're getting Smash Bros 1.1 for $60.
You're comparing two games. It's apples and oranges, okay? It is not the same thing. Mario Kart is not the same as Smash Brothers.
Is Mario Kart not DLC? Is Smash Bros not DLC? So how is it not comparable?
One of them takes thousands upon thousands of hours to complete.
How do you know that Mario Kart doesn't take thousands?
Because Mario Kart does not have a bunch of different balance patches. Mario Kart does not have as much balance patches. It's not contracted out. It's not. There's so many differences between the two. The balance patches, which is time. How many times have they patched Mario Kart? How many times have they patched Mario Kart 8 Deluxe?
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
You can count it on one.
You should probably go back to 8 because 8 is.
You can count it on maybe one or two hands. I can tell you there has been multiple patches for Super Smash Brothers. The time it takes to balance and to test characters has been way more. There is not a single person. There's not a single person that's going to tell you in the video game industry. If you want to get some professionals on here, that's going to say, you know what? I think modeling a DLC character in Mario Kart takes more time or has equal value as making a Super Smash Bros.
They don't have to test that. That's ridiculous, right? They don't have to test and balance it.
Who?
They don't have to test and balance Mario Kart characters?
No, they don't have to test and balance Mario Kart characters like Smash Brothers. No, because it's not. Mario Kart is not a fighting game. No, they don't. No.
Oh boy. Let's get off of Smash for a moment because I feel like you and I obviously don't see eye to eye on the Smash. So
nobody sees eye to eye with you because everyone buys the DLC and nobody complains like you complain about the DLC. So who sees eye to eye with you?
Who sees eye to eye to me? Read the comments. There's people that see what I'm saying is the valuation of I'm arguing the content's too expensive overall.
And I'm arguing that your opinion is not fact. Because you are basing it off value,
and all of your counter arguments for your opinion isn't fact either. It's all
from a consumer standpoint. Value is based on what they put into it.
Sure,
a character in Smash Brothers might not be valuable to you, but it might be valuable to somebody else.
I didn't say it's not valuable to me.
I'm just saying, like, I don't think, but like I said, back to your main point, I don't see how this is not like EA. This does not make Nintendo like EA. This is contracted development out to Sora and his company and Bandai Namco. It is not internally Nintendo. Intelligent Systems, they put their prices on things. Tell me where Nintendo, since you want to sit here and brandish all of them, tell me where Nintendo is doing these things to make it like EA or anywhere close. You said Mario Kart was good. I mentioned a bunch of other games. That's good. Tell me where. Tell me where they're doing it. You're talking about the comments on your page because the people, they think like you, but I'm looking at the sales, and the sales say that nobody has a problem with the price of Smash Brothers DLC. People, that's what I'm looking at.
No, and you know what? You know that a vast majority of people that use phone games don't have a problem with microtransactions? Does that mean microtransactions are okay?
The vast majority of people do have problems with microtransactions.
No, they don't. The
Yes,
hardcore people you talk to, a vast majority of consumers are your mom, or your dad, or Joe Smo in a hotel that spends $100 randomly. They don't have an issue with it. They keep doing it.
The game is free. The game is free to play, and if they want to spend their money on the game, they spend their money on the game.
So that's
I don't have a problem with microtransactions if the game is done right. Like, I don't have a problem with that if the game is done right. That is not on the way to be.
What's a done right microtransaction game for you? What game does microtransactions right?
Fire Emblem Heroes is fine. I've played it and never felt the need to buy a microtransaction.
Okay. All right, I hear you on that because I've played it as well. I've never bought a microtransaction. But
and you've never felt the need to buy a microtransaction, have you?
Well, the game encourages you to early on when you're not getting those 5 stars early. It doesn't mean you have to. Just like the fortune cookies in Animal Crossing.
You don't
have to get them.
The game is free, so they are trying to monetize their game. It's a free-to-play game, so they are trying to monetize their game.
Sure.
It's a very simple thing. I don't see where this leads to the tracks of Nintendo becoming EA. I don't think you've said a single thing here that's going to lead to the tracks. You are taking something.
Because the tracks are this. Here's the path, okay? Nintendo's nowhere near EA. That was never my argument. So all the current day comparisons, all this stuff is irrelevant because that's not the way EA was anyways. They got to that point over time. They started nickel, and it wasn't just loot boxes, by the way. They did this with DLC stuff as well. Like certain DLC stuff killed specific franchises at EA over the years when they weren't trying to do loot boxes. Loot boxes are actually the things they like because it works in multiplayer games. They can't really put it in single player as much. So they tried other methods like Nintendo does, and it led to the franchises dying. So my arguments here are, it isn't that Nintendo is EA. It's that they are doing loot boxes now. No one's really complaining. They are doing, what I view as microtransactions, little charges for little pieces of content. You might value it as a big piece of content for a little bit of money. However you want to look at it. Like we just talked about Smash characters. We didn't even touch on the skins. We didn't touch on the stages, all that stuff. We didn't touch on any of that. We focus on the characters because those are probably the highest value of all the DLC in Smash is the characters. I think most people agree that people want complete character lists. It's just a thing. Like even me as a casual, I like having a complete character list. And then Fire Emblem. Like you talked about the hundreds and hundreds of hours you got for $40. But my point was they got that hundreds of hours, but you didn't get that comparatively for the $45 DLC. Now you could talk about development cost. You could talk about all this stuff that we don't really have any idea of. What we know is that Nintendo's digital growth has been growing every year. Some of that is due to more people buying digitally. That's obvious. Switch especially has seen an uptick in digital purchases. And then some of that is also growth in things like loot boxes. It's growth in microtransactions and DLC. You can actually see on their breakdowns that's been growing. And when you start seeing that, because that's how it started with EA, they were still making a vast majority of their sales from physical games and digital sales and physical games. And then suddenly the Ultimate Team thing happened and they were making a small amount of money from that compared to everything else. And then they started doing, DLC and microtransactions and little pieces of content and stuff. They started making more and more money from it. And they're like, hey, we should be doing this in every game. So Nintendo, they went from doing it in a couple games to doing it now. And I mean, do we need to go through the list of all the games they're starting to do it in now? They started with one, and now they're up to like a dozen.
Fans want extra content in games.
You can have extra content, but isn't there? My argument is there is a correct way to deliver this content, and there's an incorrect way. And my incorrect way is one that hits your wallet harder than the game itself hits your wallet.
The problem that I have with your premise is that you have not given a sufficient example of an exact same thing that puts it on the track to EA. You've mentioned contracted work out with Bandai Namco and that, which is more expensive contracted work between two different contractors.
You don't actually know if it's more expensive.
Yes, it is more. Yes, contracted work is definitely more expensive than internal work. Yes, contracting Bandai Namco and Sora to do work is more expensive than doing it yourself. It's the difference between you doing something yourself and you contracting out somebody else to do it. The reason why I know this,
they did it themselves, it might take longer and cost more money. You have no idea. You have no idea.
And the problem, like I said, and the problem that I see, you're telling me I have no idea, but that's exactly that's the facts. That's if you compare it to what they're doing with their other DLC. Those are the facts. You're putting your hand over your head, but it's You're sitting here. The problem that I have with your whole premise is that none of that leads to it being anywhere near. Yeah, they are. You are. It's either you're clickbaiting. Okay, so maybe you're clickbaiting. You're clickbaiting and saying they're not close, but they're doing some things here and there. And no, that's not how EA got to where they are. That is not how EA got to where they are. They didn't
flip a switch to get to today. They started with one game, then they moved on to another game, then they moved on to another game.
Fans want DLC. Nintendo fans want extra content.
And extra content is fine if it's not nickel and diming you to get it.
And your opinion of nickel of diming, it's your opinion. It's not it's not fact. You can't sit here and say Nintendo was nickel and diming for all these games. $20?
Huh? Would you rather pay $60 or $20?
For what?
For say Smash content, or $45 or $20 for the.
How about I pay $1 then? How about one? I want to pay $1 for the game.
But you know as a consumer that they've made something after the fact. It costs them money to do it, so you know that you should probably pay for that, right? Like most consumers don't think we should just get everything for free.
Can I pay $5 since you're asking me what price? Can I make my own price on games? Okay, I'd like to pay.
I'm using price points Nintendo has used.
$31.75 for a game. Nintendo Prime. That's what I want to pay. That's pro-consumer, right?
Depends on the game, I suppose. Many people argue Kirby Star Allies is not worth $60, but that's a whole other conversation.
But that's your opinion. but that's your opinion.
Does it cost as much to make Kirby Star Allies as Smash Bros?
Probably not. But new games are priced at $60.
Comparatively valued the same.
That's not how the game industry works on any company.
I know that's how consumers look at it. No, that's why you see in reviews, this game is worth buying when a price drop happens. You see that all the time.
Kirby Star Allies, people went out there and bought the game because they felt that it was worth it. The value is based on the consumer. The value is based on the consumer. My issue that I have is that you're trying to sit here and make it seem as if Nintendo is on this path to destruction with DLC.
No. And what I'm saying is that if we just say this stuff is okay, people said it was okay with EA too. And
no, they didn't.
Got them. Yes, they did. When Ultimate Team got added to FIFA, there was little murmurings of complaints, but a majority said it was okay. This is how it starts. They start by doing these little things.
Would be like Fire Emblem
Heroes. You could talk about how you've never bought anything, but yet Fire Emblem Heroes, one of their least downloaded mobile games, makes the most amount of money because of the loot boxes. Do you see what I'm saying? A majority might say no, but we're also not saying it's wrong. We're just saying we don't feel the need to buy it, but we're not telling you it's wrong for having it.
I don't see how this is somehow on the track to EA when Nintendo's DLCs that have been priced pretty good for what consumers want. It's been priced pretty good. They're no closer to EA than any other company out there. There are companies.
I'm not talking about other companies though.
I know you're not, but the problem is you're clickbaiting. Then you're clickbaiting with your title because Nintendo is so far away from EA. They could get there because of this thing at the very base, lowest level. You know what? Nintendo could get like Activision at some point. They've made Splatoon. They've made a shooter. Activision makes a bunch of shooters. They're getting close to Activision because they've made a shooter. I mean, that's what you're doing. You're taking something and you're blowing it.
I never said they're close to EA.
You said on the tracks.
15 years ago, EA wasn't close to EA.
You're saying that they could become EA because of what they're doing now.
Somewhere. Activision on its path to EA. Ubisoft on its path to EA, Microsoft on its path to EA. They didn't flip a switch. They tried out one thing in one game. They tried out one thing in another game. They tried out this in this game. And then slowly over time, it gets to the point where every game they release has extra content, has extra DLC. Then they're like, oh, wait, you know what? You know what we can do? Smash Bros. As an example. What if, and again, hypotheticals, but we saw this with other companies that started doing what Smash Bros. Was doing before Nintendo did. They go, you know what? We're going to still charge you $60 for Smash Bros. And we're going to give you 5 less characters than you had last time. And we're going to sell you those characters day one for $4 a piece. Even though we already have the characters done. That's the day one DLC stuff. Now, Nintendo's not doing that yet, right? That's not a thing they're doing yet. But this is the stuff that Nintendo is doing now that other companies started doing before that happened.
It was not the problem that I see with that is I disagree with that. I disagree with how you're trying to say other companies. We're talking about EA. You want to talk about EA then? EA got bad.
They didn't start cutting content from their games.
EA got bad quickly. There was not like a long grace period of like 5 or 6 years.
What's the next
EA
game?
just started molding into this evil company. EA was voted worst company back in like 2011 or 2012. They've been being trash over a long period of time. DLC is not old. DLC is relatively new. We're talking 7th generation is when DLC started. EA got bad very quickly. They got bad. Nintendo has had DLC now for how many years?
Well,
and they have got nowhere near
has been
how bad EA got, how quickly. DLC, just because a company does DLC doesn't mean they're on the track to be like EA. That doesn't start them on the track to be like EA. You are basically saying anybody who does DLC in any certain way is on the track.
Not in any certain way. If it's like Mario Kart 8, that's not the same track as what EA does.
EA didn't start on the track of giving you 60 or 50 characters in games, then giving you in-depth characters to put out. They didn't start doing that. What EA started doing was started taking away crap and started adding real.
I just proved you wrong on that. They started by adding a mode to a game. They personally didn't take content away from that game.
I personally feel that doing the season passes the way they did was taking away something from users, from consumers. I feel that that's like saying you have to spend $10 to play online if you buy this game used. That to me is taking away something from consumers out there. That is the real anti-consumer thing. I do not see putting DLC in there as the track to being like EA, or EA got bad real quickly. You're trying to sit here and make it seem as if EA was just this great company that always puts stuff. No, they weren't. EA started getting bad really quickly in the 7th generation.
What was the next game after FIFA that they started charging extra for?
What's the next game after FIFA?
Yeah.
I don't play EA games. I haven't played EA games in forever. I just researched what I know now, and what I know now is that
what you know now is not relevant.
4 years ago with Battlefront. 4 years ago with Battlefront. Battlefront came out. When did Battlefront come out? 2015?
Yeah, something
2015. Like that, yeah. They cut out the single player and they put season pass in there. So they've been doing DLCs. They got bad quickly. You know what I'm saying? Like they got bad. It's been how many years now with Nintendo? And I don't think
by 2015, EA had been at it 11 years.
EA got
it took them 11 years to get the Battlefront. Nintendo's been doing it for 3 or 4.
EA was bad before that.
I just asked you, what did they do after FIFA? How long?
I know that they were bad before that because people were calling them the worst company before Battlefront. They won worst company in a row before Battlefront. They won that.
And the practices that got them called that wasn't just loot boxes. They were doing similar things to Smash Bros. Or Fire Emblem. Let's forget Smash Bros. They don't really have a high-tier fighting game that they really mess around with. So they're still took an RPG like Smash Bros. They do stuff, or not, I'm sorry, Fire Emblem. They do stuff like that in Dragon Age. They do stuff like that in almost all the Mass Effect games after Mass Effect 1, Mass Effect 3 especially. But they do this in a lot of their games, and they get chastised for that. A lot of the voting them worst company in the world wasn't Ultimate Team. It was the gamers care about getting DLC to death. And they didn't cut content. By the way, your argument is about the cut content. If you actually look at the progression of EA's games, they didn't start cutting content till around 2013.
You are ignoring one of the biggest reasons why they won those awards. You are trying to brush over the fact that EA was trying to say no used games and we're going to charge you money. That was a disaster, which caused
and they stopped doing that after 6 months. It was a very small period of time. I'm talking
but that's what caused them to do that. Their games were not as high as quality. That's what causing them. It wasn't because there's DLC in here and we don't like DLC. That's
wait. If their games aren't as high as quality,
was bad. Their games are not good. EA was not.
How did Dragon Age Inquisition win Game of the Year in 2014 if their games?
And nobody has a problem with Dragon Age Inquisition.
Yes, they do. Oh my God, there's a lot of issues with Dragon Age Inquisition. Everyone likes the base game. They hate the DLC.
The game, you don't need the DLC. If EA continued on the path of how Dragon Age Inquisition is, people would not be crapping on them anywhere near as much because they'd get their 100 hours of content and useless DLC or whatever the case is, or you just wait for the Game of the Year edition or whatever, or till the price drops all the way. Prices drop on those games all the way. That your whole premise of how EA got bad is completely. I think that's where the disconnect is. Your premise of how EA got bad is very different from my premise of how EA got bad.
Let me explain something.
Very different. And your premise.
I grew up on EA games. I played
EA games too. I played Need for Speed. I played all that crap.
But you just said, when I asked you after FIFA, you said, I don't play EA games. When I said, what was the next game they charged extra content for?
You
have no idea. You have no idea because you weren't playing EA games.
As far back as that, but what I'm trying to say is I remember.
But that's what I'm comparing Nintendo to. I'm comparing Nintendo now to way back then. EA got on a path to today. They didn't start today. Nintendo, well, they're only doing loot boxes right now in phone games. They're still doing loot boxes. They're still doing little pieces of content in games, which is the next step EA did after Ultimate Team. They started adding content after release. It wasn't cut out. The game they gave you was just as good, just as full of content as the game before, but they give you a $5 map here, a $5 thing here, a $10 thing here, a $2 skin here. All of that was content that never existed before. And they started doing that.
I'll also mention there's a game like Dead Space 3, for example, that microtransactions
killed it. Yeah.
Years ago they put in microtransactions. So I'm just trying to remember some of the games out there. You're trying to say that Nintendo is somehow in that same space, but EA was way worse than anything at that point. It's not the same.
The only thing that was worse, was FIFA. The only game that was worse was FIFA.
No, Dead Space was worse, and that was how many years ago was Dead Space?
Dead Space wasn't back in the era I'm talking about.
What era? That's 7th generation. That's
2006 to 2010.
That 2006 to 2010, so it's 1 year off. So you're saying, oh, well, that's not the era that I'm talking in. But so EA was perfect from that.
My point is that Nintendo's not perfect right now. My entire
I know Nintendo's not perfect.
Nintendo isn't being perfect with how they're handling DLC. And if we don't call them out on it, if we just keep blindly saying it's okay, it can get worse. I'm saying it can get worse.
And my problem with that is that you're trying to sit here and impose your will of saying, if we don't call them out, but not everyone thinks the way that you're thinking. Not everyone thinks the DLC is as bad as you. That's what you don't understand.
People didn't think that back with EA either.
As grown adults, we don't need to tell somebody else to say, I don't like Smash DLC. Hey, you don't like Smash DLC. Let's go get them. Like, no, you don't need to lynch mob people into or grab an angry people online because you don't like the DLC price and then say, we're not calling them out, so it's going to get worse. No, there are people who think that the value is there, so it's there. And I think that with any company, any other company, if you think EA's Ultimate Team or whatever the case is worth that, then you go out there and buy it or whatever the case is. I'm looking at the numbers and I'm looking at the facts. And based on what Nintendo is doing with the numbers and the facts, it's nowhere near EA. It's nowhere near EA, even in the same.
You want to base it on the numbers and facts.
You're talking about from what years to what years. It's been multiple years that Nintendo's been doing. It's been how many years now Nintendo's been doing DLC?
Sure.
They've been doing DLC since the Wii U. They've been doing DLC since the Wii U, and it's not as bad as where EA when they started out, even in that same time period, even with Dead Space. It's not as bad. It's not as bad. They don't have FIFA Ultimate Team and doing that crap like that. They didn't do online season passes from the start. We're talking, what was that, 2009? So even from the very beginning, in your time period that you tried to say, even in that, they were doing whack ass stuff, excuse my language. They were doing whack stuff even in the time period that you're saying. They are doing completely ridiculous things, and that's how EA got voted the worst company. Nintendo is not on the same tracks. And if Nintendo is on those same tracks, then every single other company in the world is on the same tracks.
Sure,
EA. That is not the case. No, every company is not on the same track to being EA.
They're pretty close.
No, it's not. No, that's just your own personal opinion on what you think because of Smash Brothers, a contracted out game that takes thousands and thousands and thousands of hours to put together DLC and to put together. That's just your opinion. It's not fact at all.
I'm not telling people how to value things. You value things how you want. Okay. I don't care if Smash Bros. DLC is worth it for me or not. Mario Kart DLC is worth it for me or not. Or if Fire Emblem DLC is worth it for me or not. My whole premise is that EA back then, they did other shitty things, but I'm just talking about their extra content they added to the games. Fans did not make, look at the ruckus that was made over the paid to win loot boxes in Battlefront 2. Huge ruckus, right? Huge ruckus. They had to pull it out day one. They're slowly bringing some of it back, but bottom line is they had to instantly respond because fan backlash. It was really bad. Fans didn't backlash like this to Ultimate Team. Fans aren't backlashing like this to things like Fire Emblem Heroes. And free to play or not, we shouldn't just say that's okay. Are you like even if you're going to tell someone if you want to spend money on that stuff in Fire Emblem Heroes, or that's okay, fine, spend that money all you want. It's your money, you spend it how you need it, whatever that commercial is.
It's free. So what do you want them to do then? It's a free. So what would you like them to do?
There's multiple ways to make money. You could charge $5 for the game. You could put ads in the game. You could have microtransactions that actually you buy specific characters, or you can get them for free through the gacha mechanic with the orbs in the game, or you can just straight out buy them.
Or you can just play the game for free and buy it if you want to buy and don't buy if you don't.
Sure.
Or you can just do that. Your case with Fire Emblem Heroes is so funny because you don't have to buy anything, yet you're saying, oh, well, that's on the track to become an EA.
Because here's the thing. People didn't make a ruckus about Ultimate Team. Ultimate Team ultimately led to Battlefront 2's situation. That is what started it. Now that Nintendo is doing loot boxes in Animal Crossing Pocket Camp and Fire Emblem is the worst case scenario.
That's your opinion. It led to that. EA is just a trash company.
If they never
does things that they want
loot
to
boxes
do.
Start somewhere, dude. You don't just overnight decide. You know what? We go from trying out loot boxes to loot boxes being the shittiest thing ever. What company has been like, you know what? We've never done loot boxes before. Now we're going to put them in there and make it the shittiest loot box system ever. That's never happened. It's never happened. It's always started.
Assassin's Creed. Never did loot boxes, then all of a sudden they want to put loot boxes in Assassin's Creed. Oh, this is great.
They had loot boxes in other IPs before that.
That's the first time that they put it in Assassin's Creed like the way that they did, though.
Yeah, and it was the first time they put it in Madden at one point. First time they put it in FIFA. The point is, EA as a company started doing loot boxes somewhere. It started at FIFA. The end right now is currently Battlefront 2. Then it'll be the next FIFA, the next Madden, the next whatever.
I'm sorry, but that doesn't make them on the track to becoming EA. That doesn't put them on the path to becoming EA.
Here's the thing. Until 2030, neither one of us are really going to know. Because I'm projecting out 10 years.
You're projecting out 10 years, but then every company's going to become like EA. Then on your premise, then every company is going to become like EA.
No, every company could. My point is, it could go that direction.
Are you serious?
We should stem the tide. Stem the tide before it gets worse.
Are you serious? You're trying to sit here and say every company become like EA. So I'm going to say that you just said that.
I said they could.
Every company could become like EA, which is dumb. Every company is not going to become like EA.
All right, you know what? Fire Emblem Heroes, Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. Keep your loot boxes. It's A-okay because consumers aren't complaining enough. And when you put it in Animal Crossing for Switch, you know what? It's A-okay because not enough consumers are complaining. And then 10 years from now, when your characters in Smash Bros. Are determined by loot boxes,
let me tell you some.
I'll point back to this debate.
I'll be like, that's just a bunch of guessing. That's just a bunch of guessing based on what? Based on loot boxes or based on in a free-to-play game? Okay, is that Smash game going to be free-to-play too?
Maybe.
Is that going to be a free-to-play Smash game too?
Most profitable games today are free-to-play in PUBG and Fortnite.
Okay, but it's Smash, but you're trying to sit here and say 10 years from now, this and this and this and this and this is going to happen.
It could be.
It's based on it could. Okay, well then everybody is going to do that because you're saying it could. It could. You don't have sufficient evidence based on what they're doing after doing years and years and years of DLC at this point.
They just started doing loot boxes.
That's in a free-to-play. That's a mobile game. It works for mobile. It works for mobile. Let me know.
They did it with Amiibo.
They will be on the track.
They did it with Happy Home Designer on 3DS.
They will be on the track to being like EA when they start doing that stuff and to where it throttles you and affects you in regular games, in AAA games when they do what EA does. EA, like I said, EA's been doing crappy stuff for a long time, well before then, in the same time period that you're trying to sit here and say that Nintendo's done with the years with DLC. They've been doing that. It's pretty clear that some companies do DLC right and some companies do DLC wrong. So therefore, the projections future is not the same, okay? You look at projections and the projections say that Nintendo's probably doing DLC better than what EA did at the beginning when they started doing DLC and years afterwards. That's what the projections say. That's what, because like we look at Bethesda, they've been doing DLC for how many years now or whatever, right?
Well, I can counter that.
Horse Armor, it started off wrong, but they've got DLC down and people generally like Bethesda's DLC. They should have been on the same track that you're saying because they did Horse Armor back in 2006. That's horrible. Why didn't they turn into EA like you're saying? So that's the problem that I have. You're sitting here and acting like everyone is going to, this is going to all blow up because you're overreacting and you're clickbaiting with that video that you did. You clickbaited and you're trying to sit here and say, so in 2006, people are, oh my gosh, Bethesda's going to turn into this crazy company that nickels and dimes you for horse armor, for sword armor, for shirt armor, for shoes armor. And is Bethesda that company that does that? They're not.
Can you do me a favor?
Clickbaited, and it doesn't always work out the way that it works out because
you have issues with any extra downloadable content Nintendo's ever done?
What?
Do you have any issues with any of the extra downloadable content Nintendo's ever done?
Yes.
What? Give an example.
Fire Emblem is not the best implementation, but that's intelligent systems. It's like they have their own president, CEO, and what they want to do, so they do that. So, I mean, I don't buy their DLC. If I don't have the problem, the thing with me is that if a game puts out DLC and I don't like it, and I'll be like, oh, I don't really like this DLC, I'm not going to buy it. If the game gives me hundreds upon hundreds of hours of content without the DLC, that's fine. If you want to give me 300 hours of content and it's and I don't have to buy deals, or like, the DLC's there, but I don't have to buy it, then it's fine. If a game wants to cut out a single player and then say, here's a $50 season pass, then I have a problem with that. But Nintendo's not doing that.
They had a $45 season pass with Fire Emblem.
It's $20 if I'm not.
No, Fire Emblem is $45.
Okay,
and that's actually 30% off of buying the content.
Fire Emblem Warriors, but like I said,
Warriors. Warriors is different. Warriors charge you the same price Hyrule Warriors did. That's how it should be handled, in my opinion. Okay,
and that's intelligent systems and what they do when they already offer me hundreds upon hundreds of hours of content for $40. I get my money's worth, and then I go. I don't have to like everything that Nintendo does. I don't have to buy everything that Nintendo does. I don't have to complain about DLC that I don't need. As long as they give me 200 hours, as long as they give me 100-something hours of content in Fire Emblem, they can do the DLC that they want to do.
So the bottom line is, you don't have to be critical of Nintendo.
As long as I get my content as far as what I want in there, then that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. And that's the same thing that I have with other systems too. It's not just Nintendo. If other companies want to give me 300 hours of content or 200-something hours of content and a full complete experience, and then charge $50 for DLC, go ahead, be my guest. Go ahead and do that. That's their prerogative. That's fine. But if a company wants to sit there and do what EA's doing, which is the season pass stuff, the FIFA Ultimate Team, hey, here's this new mode. Oh, but unfortunately, we're going to throttle you and make you pay $8,000.
But they didn't cut any content to put that mode in. You got the same content for $60 as you got the year before.
But the exact same content. But they're working on that instead of actually making the game better. Like, they're putting all this effort into Ultimate.
FIFA doesn't have an exclusive contract for soccer, and yet it's still the best soccer game in the world. It's a quality game. It's a quality game.
Okay, in your opinion, it's a quality game. But I mean, I get what you're trying to say. But what I'm trying to say is that they are spending a lot of time and a lot of money into researching ways to really nickel and dime people with microtransactions, infinite microtransactions that never run out. And they've been doing this for a very long time. And Nintendo's not on that same path with their main AAA games. They're not on that same track, and that's the main issue. That's the main issue that I have here. That your whole premise is of how Nintendo is trying to be like this. Then, like I said, every company is trying to be like that. Every company's not. But
every company is looking to maximize revenue. Like every
company is looking to maximize revenue. That's fine, and every consumer has the right to buy certain revenue or buy certain stuff and not buy certain stuff. And what I see with Fire Emblem is that I see that you get a game that's going to give you at least, if you want to do everything, it's going to give you 100 hours minimum.
So what you're saying is, if the game you bought was, in your opinion, worth the price of admission, that it's impossible to be critical of the DLC.
No, you can be critical all you want to.
But you shouldn't voice it. You said, yeah, but I had hundreds of hours, so I'm not going to voice that I'm...
No, you can voice... I tell people to watch your videos where you voice displeasure all the time.
Well, yeah, I don't talk about this topic a lot because this is controversial. If you can't
anybody can talk about, if you want to voice your displeasure with DLC and how it is. The problem that I had is that when you tried to say, oh, well, everyone, like, people should be calling this out. No, if you feel that the content was worth the price or whatever, you don't have to call it anything. And they're not on the same track as Nintendo. You don't have to call it nothing. That's what I'm saying.
And see, that's the disconnect. The content, when they added Ultimate Team, the people spoke. It was worth the price of admission. And yet, look what happened. That's my whole point. I'm not talking about what's happening. Ultimate Team on its own, I don't even think it's that terrible of a thing. I don't think loot boxes should be in full price games. But you know what? They didn't cut content to add in that mode. It's just like they threw it on the side and said, look, if you'd like to try out this new mode, it costs more money. It's not really part of the base package. Probably they would make more money if they offered Ultimate Team for free, like Fortnite does with their Battle Royale, and then they're going to have a separate game. But whatever. That's EA finding a way to make more money, to be honest. My point is that at the end of the day, fans accept it. Like, you can get mad about they rejected the idea of the paying extra for used games, right? They rejected that. So it went away. But they didn't reject what EA was doing when they started doing this. And today, we're not rejecting what Fire Emblem Heroes is doing. We're not rejecting what Pocket Games.
I'm going to have to sit here and disagree. I'm going to have to sit here. And people did reject what EA. I think people did reject what EA is doing. The problem is that there's a lot of people out there. There's tons and tons and millions of gamers. There's new gamers that come in. It is impossible to sit here and almost rally everyone. Even if you look at Star Wars Battlefront 2, that game still sold.
You don't have to rally everyone. You have to rally the right people.
Even if you rally the right people, not everyone's going to think that the same way in terms of how you value content and what's going on there. I don't think it's the same. Honestly, if people honestly thought that the DLC was so bad and things are so bad as like you're saying, they would say something. I honestly feel, I personally feel
they did say something in Echoes. They did. And I guarantee when Fire Emblem on Switch comes out, they ain't gonna learn anything. They're gonna do the same thing.
They're gonna do because they've been doing that before Echoes. They did that with Awakening.
They
did that. But it got
worse. It got progressively worse than
Echoes. They even did that with Fire Emblem Fates. They split the game and did all sorts of weird things. But each game that you got gave you hundreds upon hundreds of hours of content. If that's the worst.
Fire Emblem's a perfect example. People didn't call it out in Awakening, got worse in Echoes, and it got worse in Fates. It kept getting progressively worse.
People did call it out. The problem is that people value content differently. That is people called it out. People called it out. The Kingdom Come people called out Fire Emblem Fates. I get people arguing about me with Fire Emblem. People called it out like crazy. The thing that you're not understanding, Nate, is that people value things differently. Not everyone is going to feel the same way. So this is what companies do. They try to say, you know what? This might be kind of crappy, but at least we have this, which is 100 hours of base content for this game. So even if you're mad, you still get 100 hours for $40, or you still get this many. So you can be mad all you want to, but at least you get this content for this amount of price. So that's the reason why that's the reason why I don't think it's going to get like that. EA, for example, they're doing things to where they're complete. It's way worse. It's way worse. There is a different track. Nintendo is going on one track, okay, for DLC. EA went on a completely different track. They are not on the same track. They are on different tracks, and they are clear on different tracks.
So they don't have games that charge for little pieces of content?
What?
So they don't have games that aren't loot box related that charge for little pieces.
They have free to play, which is a completely new thing for them.
I'm talking about their single player games. They still have them. They still charge for little pieces of content.
Okay, and those games like Fire Emblem, right? That's the only game that you can think of?
For Nintendo, I mean, yeah. I think for single player,
they're on the track. They could become EA because of Fire Emblem,
potentially,
and because of Smash Brothers,
potentially.
So you're using two games for them to become like EA.
And we didn't talk about
there's tons of games that don't do that. So why are the two games that you feel that they're becoming the track over by the other games?
So when FIFA Ultimate Team happened, but the hundreds of other games EA put out a year didn't do it. Should we not have said anything?
But people did say something.
They didn't.
FIFA Ultimate Team?
I played FIFA back then. The FIFA community just said, "Oh, this sucks," and then they ignored it. They didn't go to EA and be like, "You need to remove this, or I'm not buying your game." They said, "Nope. You know what? I don't have to play that. I'll keep buying your game."
Okay. And you said that they gave it.
That was the start. That was the start.
But it goes back to my point to where people felt that you said that people liked FIFA, that it gives you. They didn't cut anything, right?
Yeah, at the time, yeah.
Okay, so at the time they didn't cut anything, so it was an extra mode, so people didn't have a problem with it. Why are people going to revolt against something if, like you said by your own admission, that they didn't cut anything from FIFA? It was still a great game, so people didn't have a problem with it. That's the same thing as Fire Emblem. They're adding in things. They're adding in things, but the game is already really good and it already gives you enough amount of content.
That's where it started for EA. So when you have this happening with Nintendo, not loot box necessarily, but extra content that people are saying, you know what, I don't have to buy that. I'm okay with the base game. But enough people do buy it. And because the people that don't like it didn't pipe up, didn't make a hubbub about it, like they did with Battlefront 2, Nintendo's like, yeah, you know what? We're just going to keep making it worse. And they did that with Fire Emblem. Don't be surprised when they do it with Animal Crossing on Switch.
So
don't be surprised if Mario Kart Tour leads to some sort of system in Mario Kart 9 in the future.
So are you trying to tell me that Nintendo simply is just looking at that and not looking at all the other stuff people are saying when it comes to EA and when it comes to DLC and all that? Are you just trying to say you're going all negative? You're trying to tell me that they're not looking at any of the other stuff, like how people don't want to be throttled with DLC and how people don't like all these intrusive microtransactions? You're trying to tell me that they're looking at all the negative, but they're not looking at any of that and could potentially make sure that they stay on the right course? Why?
No, because they're a for-profit company. They look at the sales. Oh, this game's still selling 4 or 5 million copies. Oh, and we're making this extra money on top. Why would we not keep doing that?
And from what I've seen, that they clearly see they could have throttled you in Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
No, they couldn't have because that's a niche game. It's too low.
Doesn't matter if it's a niche game or not.
Sale. Yes, it is. If you upset the player base of Xenoblade, that's less than 1 million on average.
Bravely Default is a niche game, and that game has microtransactions.
Bravely Default's a cheaper game. It's not a $60 console.
Doesn't matter if it's cheaper or not. You said niche. You said niche game. There's niche games that have microtransactions.
Sure, there are.
There's niche games that have microtransactions.
But Nintendo would not take a risk with a game like Xenoblade that they actually invest a decent amount of money into making with Monolith to be like, you know what? We haven't even cracked 1 million in the series. Let's just throw a bunch of stuff in that potentially might stunt growth so we can make more money off less people. That's what EA does that for some things.
So you're saying that Nintendo looks at certain things and says, you know what, it's probably not a good idea to do that.
They look at profit margins and sales figures.
Okay.
They wait for a franchise. As an example, Fire Emblem, it got to a certain size, they started doing this stuff. Mario Kart got to a certain size, now we're offering DLC.
That's not Nate. That's not true.
It didn't too. Now they're doing an Octoling expansion after it got to a certain size.
No. Time out. Let me stop you right there. It did not get to a certain size. Fire Emblem was on its deathbed when they did that. On its deathbed.
Yeah, Awakening had to sell to keep the series.
It had to. They did this on its. The last game didn't have it. It sold less than the game that did.
But it was a pre-established franchise that, yes, if this game sold like crap, it's dead. But they added that in there so they can make the most amount of money from the game, regardless of how many people buy it.
You said that it built up to that. It didn't build up to that.
It wasn't the first Fire Emblem game, was it? It was an established IP.
Established IP that was damn near dead, and you're trying to sit here and tell me that.
As an example, I'll give you Splatoon, right?
Come on, wait, Nate, come on. At least just admit that the point that you made was ridiculous. You just said, "Oh well, they built up to it, and they wouldn't do that in a niche franchise." You just said that they wouldn't do that in a niche franchise like Xenoblade. Xenoblade was more popular than Fire Emblem, and they did it in Fire Emblem. No, just admit that point that you made was whack.
Xenoblade was not more popular than Fire Emblem.
Xenoblade was more popular than Fire Emblem.
No,
at one point, at their points, it was more popular. Fire Emblem was dead. It was dead. It was dead.
Hold on, I'm looking up the sales figures right now.
Xenoblade 1 was more popular than the last Fire Emblem game before Fire Emblem Awakening. Xenoblade 1 sold better and was more popular than Fire Emblem. It flopped.
Well, I'm looking at
the sale. Fire Emblem flopped.
I'm looking at the sales. Hold on.
Look at the sales. I don't need to look at sales to tell you that you're wrong. How are you going to sit here and tell me that Xenoblade wasn't Fire Emblem was more popular when the franchise was about to die? The franchise was dead.
The last Fire Emblem game.
No. The one before Awakening.
Yeah, the one before Awakening sold 970,000 units. That's higher than every Xenoblade game except
the Fire Emblem game before. That's not higher than every Xenoblade game. That's not. We don't have the
Xenoblade didn't cross 1 million until Xenoblade 2. Nintendo announced that.
You are using VG charts numbers. The game, in terms of Fire Emblem, you're using VG charts numbers. I'm telling you right now, if they sold 900,000 units of the last Fire Emblem, the game wouldn't have been dead. Okay. They would 900,000 units of Fire Emblem. If that's what the real sales were for that game, I guarantee you they wouldn't be like, okay, the next game when we're dead. That's BS. That is BS, and you know it.
And by the way, I'm going back and looking at the average sales of the Fire Emblem series because I was actually on the high end. Usually, they've been selling around 500,000.
I need you to tell me why Fire Emblem would die if it sold 900,000. If that is the number which it's not. Why was the franchise going to die?
Well, let me ask you this.
I guarantee you that was not the number that they sold.
Let me counter you with this. Now I'm looking at like Fire Emblem series, like on Wikipedia. Forget VG charts. The average Fire Emblem game leading into Awakening was selling 500,000 units. There wasn't any significant dip anywhere. So why did they suddenly decide, you know what? We have a consistently selling series. If this doesn't sell more than this, we're done with it.
The problem is that you don't know Fire Emblem, and it wasn't consistently selling. You're using VG charts.
I'm not VG charts. I just told you I went to a different source.
The source is not. Listen, the franchise flops, okay? Either they're selling those copies for like $1 a piece. The franchise was flopping. If Nintendo was making significant money off this, then they wouldn't be saying this, Prime. You're sitting here and trying to make a scenario that is not real. The scenario is not real. Fire Emblem was in desperate trouble. It was in trouble. It was not selling. It was not being profitable. The game, the last game that they were going to make, which was all documented by Iwata asked, if this game didn't sell, which I think they were looking for like 500,000 or something like that.
Oh, it didn't save the series. I'm not questioning you on
that. What I'm saying is that you're trying to sit here and say that, oh, they wouldn't ever put microtransactions or this type of DLC in a niche game, but they did. I'm disputing that point. Sure. That's what you said.
That is what I said. I misspoke. I meant a collective of niche with established franchise is more what I meant.
A niche versus established franchise. But
well, have they put DLC and microtransactions in any franchise at the start? Forget 30 years ago, right? Splatoon 1 came out. All of that was obviously free. New IP did phenomenally well considering it was a Wii U game. And then Splatoon 2 comes out, and now we're getting an expansion pass. Now, I think the expansion pass, from what we know of it, is worth it. I compare it more to Mario Kart. But look, now they're adding additional content, and this is the correct way to do it, in my opinion. This is the pro-consumer way. Now, they're doing that in Splatoon 2. So that's what I want. That's clearly taken after Mario Kart. And you're going to tell me, as an example, you might argue that, like, if in a future Splatoon, if they do the EA thing, they charge you for a weapon, right? You buy a weapon, you loot box a weapon. They don't have to balance the weapon, the new weapon they just added. There's no balancing to that. That Splatoon 2 won't take the balancing. And now I understand, hypothetical, this hasn't happened. So it's kind of almost pointless to bring up. But that my point was in all of this isn't that Nintendo today is this evil corporation set on bleeding our wallets until we can't breathe anymore so they can milk us for everything we have, or going for the big white whales beyond Fire Emblem Heroes that clearly, based on the install numbers and the money it's making, it's got some whales in that game. My point is that Nintendo sees that. They see what Fire Emblem Heroes is doing. And what did they do? They updated Pocket Camp to add in fortune cookies. That wasn't there at launch. That was something that's like, hey, we're going to add this in because look at how much money we're getting off a kind of sort of similar loot box situation in Fire Emblem. And now if that does well, I don't know how well it's doing. It hasn't been out long enough for us to get full figures yet. But when they start seeing that, and they start seeing that this mobile game that's free to play with loot box is making more than Metroid Prime 4 does for them, profit margin wise. I'm not saying that'll happen. I only bring up Metroid because Metroid traditionally sells 2 million copies or less. Metroid Prime 1 being the oddball that sold 4 million, best selling in the whole franchise. But if there's no continual way to make revenue off of Metroid, over time, Fire Emblem Heroes is going to make more money.
You're comparing Metroid.
This is all Nintendo, though. This is stuff Nintendo's doing.
Mobile, and you're comparing. Nintendo has a clear-cut vision for what they want to do and how their fans are going to react to Metroid versus mobile. You are sitting here and making conspiracy theories and saying it could based on mobile, which is silly. There is a clear difference between the two that we have seen. Nintendo is not going to make microtransactions like they did just because they make money in Animal Crossing or whatever, or Fire Emblem. That doesn't mean that they're on the tracks to do the same thing in their main game. It does not mean that. And that does not mean
home designer on 3DS. How is that going to be any different from Animal Crossing on Switch? Besides the fact it'll be a fuller game, not just about your home.
What is Happy Home Designer?
So Happy Home Designer is a game that came out on 3DS.
Yes, I know that.
Yeah. So it's basically just a home decorator is what it is. And how it works is there's things you can do in game to get certain items, but you can't get all the items in game. What you have to do is go and buy the amiibo card packs for it. And in the amiibo card packs, which are, as we've kind of sort of explained before, how card collecting works. It's all loot boxes. Technically, it's like the origin of a loot box, but those are for collectible reasons. Here, you're buying these physical cards, not knowing what you can get, so you can put items into the game, and you buy as many cards as you want to get the items, hopefully get the items you want in the game. It's basically a physical loot box for a digital game.
How many of these cards are there for you to use in the game?
Off the top of my head, it was something like 115 different ones.
And how much do they give you within the game in terms of items and all that?
The base items, I'm not. Geez, I have. I don't even know where that 3DS is right now. I played. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I remember in the game after like the first 2 hours, I kind of sort of ran out of things, and it was like, hey, did you know you could buy these amiibo packs to get these items that you can only get through the amiibo packs?
Okay, so that's Animal Crossing in terms of how they do it with Happy Home Designer. How many years ago was Happy? That's not going to be just because Happy Home Designer does one thing. That doesn't mean Nintendo tracks to do.
So since New Leaf came out, so since New Leaf came out, they released Happy Home Designer and Amiibo Festival, which both of them kind of sort of had that same thing, although Happy Home Designer was worse. And then they released Pocket Camp that is even worse than all of that. So you're telling me the progress that we have seen of Animal Crossing since New Leaf is going to be irrelevant when the new one comes out?
What I'm saying is that Nintendo has clearly seen how certain games progress. Like Happy Home Designer, I don't think that was like a huge seller or people flocked to that game and bought all that. So the fact that people didn't do that, I'm pretty sure that they're going to look and say, you know what, people didn't really like everything that was done in that game. People didn't really like Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival and what was done in that game. Maybe we shouldn't do the same thing because those games weren't successful. I think that's what Nintendo's going to look at.
Or they look at it as none of these games are full Animal Crossing games. So what if we create a full Animal Crossing game for Switch and we say, you know what, but we add fortune cookies so you can get stuff in your house that you might not be able to get in game or get enough currency in game to get faster. I mean, obviously, in most cases, even an Ultimate Team on FIFA, right? You can get all the players. You never need to spend a dime. You can get it. It's about how much time you.
It's going to take you way too long. You can't.
Sure, but that's what it is in Pocket Camp right now. If you want all of the stuff to decorate your campsite, it takes you too long. No.
$60 game to a free-to-play game, but okay, go ahead.
What you got to see, the loot box, what I'm saying, the loot boxes started in the Happy Home Designer for the Animal Crossing thing, progressed a little bit into Amiibo Festival. I don't know enough about Amiibo Festival to continue talking about it outside of the fact that I know you needed to buy the Amiibo and use the Amiibo cards. I'm going to leave that one alone because I didn't touch that game with a 10-foot pole. I had no appeal.
I don't think you're making a solid point here with Animal Crossing. Like Happy Home Designer, you're trying to sit here and say they see the progress, like they did this and this, and so how do you know it's not going to come to this next thing? But it failed. It didn't do as good as that.
We don't know that it failed.
We know that it didn't sell as much as Animal Crossing New Leaf.
It's not a full Animal Crossing game.
Okay,
if they take the mechanics from if they take fortune cookies or amiibo cards, they take those mechanics and they put them in a full Animal Crossing game. A full Animal Crossing game on its own is probably going to sell 4 or 5 million units on Switch, if not more.
More than that.
Okay, more than that, right? Like we can agree a full Animal Crossing game, like a full Pokemon game, is going to go nuts. People are going to buy it. But if they put those mechanics in there, that like if they look at it as, yeah, we didn't sell a lot of Happy Home Designer, but look at the profit margins per sale based on the microtransactions we did off those amiibo cards. Or look at Pocket Camp. We didn't get a huge install base, but the people that did get it, look at the money we made off them. So if we release a game that we know 8, 9, 10 million people are going to buy, how much extra money can we make if we put those mechanics in that game?
Okay.
How do you know Nintendo? I say this because Animal Crossing is the repeat offender right now. The thing they've experimented with.
Happy Home Designer is not the type of game that's like people are sitting here and saying that it's like a full game or anything like that. So I don't think Nintendo would.
You still buy the game.
It is the same type of thing. It's like that game was built. It's like saying, oh man, we're getting nickel and dimed with like Skylanders or something like that. The game was built for you to go out there and buy these stupid little things and use them in that game. That was the whole point of the game, like to buy these things, to use these things in the game. So I don't think it's a very good point. And I also think that with the games that you're talking about, I still, to this point,
are you hot over there, OJ? I'm sweating like a mofo over here.
I'm sweating too, but that's just because my room's a little warm right now.
Yeah,
but
my room's toasty right now.
I don't see where you've made any valid points to where Nintendo could become EA, and if the only point that you've made is that literally everyone could become EA based on your own analysis and what you literally, that's your own analysis, because everyone is done with what you've complained. Literally every single company has done exactly what you've said. So that's the point that I will give. Yeah. Every company's on the track to be, every major company on the track to become EA.
Well, the reason I bring it up with Nintendo, beyond the fact I'm a Nintendo channel, is that Nintendo, I think we can agree on this point, Nintendo's been behind on online stuff forever, right? Like, we only just on Switch got a universal account. Like, crazy that things that have been around since like 2006 and before, we just got now. And I feel like a lot of the delays we're seeing, like happy delays, by the way, in Nintendo progressing faster towards EA, is because of Nintendo's misunderstanding of online and the market potential to make money there. And my fear is the more we just say what they're doing is okay, what they're doing with Fire Emblem is okay, because it doesn't bother me. What they're doing with Smash is okay, because I feel it's worth the value. The more they start seeing these profit margins, the more they start realizing that we can make even more for less. And I'm not saying Nintendo's necessarily dabbling too much in that right now. You know, little bits and pieces here and there. Fire Emblem Echo's worst example, but you know, even some of the mobile games or whatever. What I'm saying is, because Nintendo's so late to the game, and now that they're in the game and they're slowly progressing towards adding more of this stuff in, that my fear is that if we are just saying it's okay because it doesn't bother me, like the people it does bother, right? Even me, like as an example said, it's optional. If I don't feel the DLC is worth it for Smash, don't buy it. Okay, I won't buy it. That's fine. I personally didn't buy the DLC for Smash. And now I've said, remember that comment I made before, how I said I'm a hypocrite?
Yeah.
The hypocrite in me is if they would have released like a playable Tingle, I probably would have bought it. So that's the hypocrite in me coming up. But it doesn't mean that I feel good about that purchase. It means that, man, I paid $60 for this game. I'm completely satisfied. And now they're adding this content to it. I love adding content to it. But, man, I paid $60 for all of this, and I'm paying $5 for just this. Even if I use just this for 1,000 hours, to use just that, I had to buy a $60 product to use just that. It's one of these things where I'm not – Nintendo is a company I passionately care about, passionately love. And while every company is doing little things here and there, or big things in some cases, Activision does a lot of big things that could be going down that path to getting up to EA's level, which I don't know if anyone will ever reach EA's level. Like EA's level today, maybe, but EA is going to get worse, right? Like EA's shown no remorse in how bad they're going to get. So what EA is today is probably going to be worse 10 years around if they're still in business. My fear is, as someone who cares so much about Nintendo, is I see them doing these things. I grew up with Nintendo, but I saw this happening with other companies, not just EA. EA is the one I drew as the worst possible scenario, but I've seen it with other companies, on other games, on other platforms, and I watched this same progression. And some of them arguably got worse. Konami got to the point now that they just straight up make gambling machines, which was probably the next step for EA, is to just start making pachinko machines or some shit. Especially since Konami, I think Konami just post their highest profit year of all time or something crazy like that.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, obviously that wasn't part of the debate, so you didn't read it.
Yeah, I don't know with them. I'm just I'm sitting here.
I'm sorry. I'll let you say something.
No, go ahead. Go ahead and finish.
Because I feel like we're kind of winding down now.
Yeah, it's definitely winding down.
It's just one of those. This is like my final statement. Is I hear what you're saying. Nothing Nintendo is doing now is as bad as EA. What they are doing, even with Fire Emblem Heroes, is not as bad as Ultimate Team in FIFA way back when. What happened with my paywall experience in Fire Emblem Awakening might be comparable to Origins in some level, in taking me out of the game, because I don't feel like we should ever have something happen in the game that kills your immersion to spend money. But that's, again, as you said, personal preferences, personal opinions. Nintendo's not there. My fear is, as they dabble in, and maybe this is just a fear because I've watched other companies have this happen to them.
Who?
is the more they dabble in this.
Who was that?
Other
who is
company,
that?
other
Like
companies.
EA?
Okay, like EA. EA is the worst example, right? The reason I put EA in the title and I talked about them in the video is because I wanted to compare. Nintendo is at the very beginning of doing this kind of stuff. EA is at the worst possible scenario for doing this stuff. There's middle ground in there. Everyone else is in the middle somewhere. I'd argue Activision's probably like 5 notches below EA, but they're one of the other ones that are way up there. I've watched these other companies start the way Nintendo did, taking pieces of content and selling to you for little bits of amount and progressively get worse with it. To EA's level, not quite, but they've gotten pretty bad to the point that communities complain a lot, and to the point that the industry itself is reducing itself down to games that just make the most amount of money off of those extra transactions. Not altogether. Indie games are fantastic. Obviously, exceptions. Nintendo has so far, like Mario Odyssey, you haven't had to pay anything extra for anything in that game right now. So like Nintendo's not there yet either. But my fear is they started with a single game. They started doing it more and more often as we progressed from the Wii U era into the Switch era. My fear is it's not that I don't want extra content. I've been paying for expansion packs since I think the first time I remember Age of Empires
based on you, pretty much the minute they decided to do anything extra, they're on the track to become EA. Pretty much.
No, not anything extra. Because to me,
the minute they wanted to do DLC, they were on the track to becoming EA. That's pretty much what you said.
There's a separation in content delivery. I grew up, and this is probably where a lot of this comes from. I grew up playing Age of Empires or The Sims or some of those PC games because those were the first ones to have extra content because internet wasn't a thing on other systems. So like when you wanted, another Zelda or like Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time 1.5. Well, in today's world, that might be, the Breath of the Wild DLC instead of its own thing. But back then, you would buy an expansion pack you'd spend $50-$60 on Age of Empires, then spend $20 to $40 on an expansion pack. And that expansion pack added a comparable amount of content to the price you paid for the original game. Then we progressed forward and console games started doing this, right? They started offering season passes and DLC packs and expansion passes and stuff like that. And they were offering initially comparable content to the original game for the price you paid. That's how people started doing it because they probably looked at the PC model and said, hey, they're doing it. We have internet on these systems now. Let's do it here too. And then it just evolved from that into individual purchases, loot boxes, etc. And Nintendo is kind of dabbling on both sides of the line for me. On one hand, they are doing the expansion passes, the full-bodied spend a little bit more money, but get significantly more content for the price. And they're also dabbling in that we are going to kind of dabble in loot boxes. We're starting with mobile because there'll be less backlash on mobile because mobile consumers are used to it. Doesn't mean it's okay, but it means that we know there'll be less backlash here to start. They're dabbling in selling individual pieces of content with Smash Bros. And Fire Emblem. And then on top of Fire Emblem, offering you an expansion pass. And then having people bitch about that and have it not be enough value. And you even admitted that DLC doesn't really seem worth it, so you didn't buy it, whatever. My point is, like, if we just say, yeah, but we enjoyed the base game. Like, we enjoyed the base game of Fire Emblem. DLC practice or nothing. Like, I just won't pay. You spend your money how you want. My fear, and it's probably, I guess your argument is it's probably too soon to have any fear like this. But my fear is watching how it's happened in the industry, across the industry.
You're overblowing everything at this point. I mean, you're
because
taking
Nintendo's
mobile and you're taking mobile. You're crossing mobile with home console games. You're taking little things in games that are built to be like collecting, like Happy Home Designer, and crossing that over to mainline.
Let me be clear.
You're just mixing and matching however you feel like. Let me be clear.
I view the video game industry as a whole. To me, cell phone games are just as viable of a product as a home console game.
But it's not.
But it is.
Nintendo doesn't think that way. It's clear Nintendo doesn't think that way. You're just your doomsday scenario in your head makes you think that way. But it's pretty clear that Nintendo's mobile and what they're doing there is very different. They've had ample opportunity to destroy us, okay, based on their profits of Fire Emblem. They've had ample opportunities to absolutely destroy us. It's not like they're saying, okay, in year 1, we know this. Okay, in year 2, now this. In year 3, now this. In year 4, now Yes, it's like nobody's doing that.
It takes time to gather the data.
No, that's your own doomsday scenario.
When they started Ultimate Team, they had no idea.
I want you to show me some actual. You haven't even been able to connect what EA did before and in the time period, because EA did crappier things even beforehand in the time period. You haven't even been able to connect that to what Nintendo. All you've done is put out a basic premise and then attach Nintendo's name to it. They did DLC here, attach it to EA, put out a video saying that you're scared, and doomsday scenario this whole thing. That's
I didn't doomsday scenario it. I did.
You did. You were just saying it could be. This is how it could be. It could. EA's the worst. That's doomsday. EA is the worst. That is a doomsday scenario.
What I was critical
of
Nintendo's pricing model on specific DLC content in specific games. And I said, we've seen this happen before with other companies like EA, and we've seen what this has led to. And I don't want it to get worse than it is today.
EA didn't.
And what you're telling me is I can't be critical.
No, I'm saying you can. What I'm saying is that you are completely jumping the gun and overblowing. If you want to say maybe Nintendo's kind of getting a little crazy with their DLC, then that's fine. You can say that, but to put it in a doomsday scenario and say, "Oh my gosh, this person is going all the way towards EA," that'd be like me taking like a common person who like robs the store and comparing him to Osama bin Laden. It's like the comparison that you're making, or saying that to even put those two in the same sentence is a problem that I have. I have a problem with you putting those two in the same sentence. I don't feel, and I hate EA. Everyone knows I hate EA. And if EA did things like Nintendo did, which when I remember playing EA games, they didn't. When I remember playing Dead Space, they were doing things far worse in a far faster amount of time. When I saw Dead Space 3, when I saw what they did with companies, I mean, it's not just microtransactions that do this. Sure. EA is crazy.
EA on the whole, yeah.
EA, this whole company's crazy. They're psycho. They're sitting here buying studios, laying people off, changing CEOs like crazy. All of that stuff relates to their transfers to their games. They are taking people and doing the weirdest things. You need to, if you're going to compare them to EA, then they have to have the same workplace environment, the same scenario, things going on. That is not the case. So when you sit there and say, "Oh, well, this could happen because it's EA," look at all the stuff EA's done with the management. I mean, it's a person. It's not just ideas of microtransactions. We're talking about how the company is run, the people running the company, the mindsets of those companies. These two companies don't have the same mindset. There's nothing to do between them. So that's the biggest issue that I have. This company is EA is literally insane and drunk off of money more so than anything. They're probably looking at Nintendo and saying, "This company is foolish. This is a stupid company," because look at all the times that they could throttle you with microtransactions.
EA can afford to buy Nintendo. That's how much money they have.
EA can't afford to buy Nintendo, not in the traditional sense. Not in the traditional sense.
Not like a straight up like buying.
They wouldn't have any money left. They can't. But whatever. That's beside the point. The point is this: EA's probably looking at this and saying, "This is ridiculous. Like, these two companies don't see eye to eye. These two companies have literally nothing in it. Microsoft is more likely to become EA than anything, because they're the ones who are doing loot boxes and racing games. They're doing all the stuff very quickly. I mean, you're sitting here and saying Nintendo's like this. I know you're a Nintendo channel. I get that.
But Microsoft has been around in the game since the original Xbox. They didn't just get to today overnight. They started doing some of this stuff, dabbling in it with Halo back in 2008. Like, it didn't just get to where it is today. They actually progressed even slower than Nintendo has in adding stuff in.
Okay, but what I'm trying to say is that if you look at the totality of Nintendo and you see what they've been doing so far, it's pretty clear that they're not going down the same path. It's not even close. You look at Pokemon.
I don't know if it's got a bunch of anything yet. We don't even have the online. We don't even have their paid online account system launched yet. We're only in year 2, starting year 2 of the Switch.
They started DLC years ago, though. They started DLC years ago.
But again, online systems that weren't really built properly to support something like this.
But like, it was. You could.
I mean, you could release DLC. It wasn't as fleshed out. Like, they're fleshing things out now with their online. How good it is, we don't know. It's not September yet. All we can look at is what we have now. But my thing is that now that Nintendo is getting to the paid online, and I didn't even bring this argument up. The amiibo, another thing I didn't bring up in the video, where they used to lock content behind physical items that might be sold out and you can't get. Metroid Samus Returns, I think, was the worst case scenario, where you couldn't even get the amiibo. They were sold out and you couldn't play hard mode without it.
Well, you could have played the fusion mode. You can.
Yeah,
There's a hard mode that you unlock after the game.
Yeah, it was the hardest of the hard.
It was an extra. It was an extra mode in the game.
Yeah. So like, and my criticism back then for that was, have that. You can have it behind the amiibo. So if someone wants to buy the amiibo and they just get that for having the amiibo, great. But they should sell it on the side as well, right? Like,
okay, but
like. I know it's a different
Nintendo in the same track as EA. That's completely different. You're comparing two things that aren't in the same track. I wish EA went in that track. Please, EA.
You wish EA locked content behind physical items that are sold out.
If you want to give us a game as good as Metroid Samus Returns, or if you want to give us as much content as Smash Bros. EA, please give me games, EA. Give me games that give me as much content as Smash Brothers and give me $70 of DLC with extra characters and decide if I want to buy them or not. If EA does that for the rest of their times with all their games, nobody will have a single problem with EA at all. EA got way worse, way faster, and I don't think you've proved that they haven't. I don't think that you've proved that they haven't.
I'm not trying to prove how fast EA got worse.
You did actually.
I'm saying they started the extra online purchases with Ultimate Team about 15 years ago, and Nintendo is not 15 years into this. I'm saying that like Nintendo in the same time, like if you want to break it down, the first 4 years of EA starting to from Ultimate Team through the next 4 years, Nintendo has more games than EA does, charging extra stuff for in that same time period. Nintendo already is in an accelerated rate in terms of charging more. Now, again, there's a difference, I think, between this is why I separate out DLC and microtransactions. Microtransactions is individually buying small things for a little bit of money. If that small thing is a currency to use a loot box, or it's just straight up buying loot boxes for $2, okay, like that's still a microtransaction, just as much as buying a stage for $2.
Those are two different things. You cannot put those two. So if a game had two different small things that you can buy, they're each $1 a piece, you're going to put that in the same category as a game that you can consistently buy infinite amounts of orbs or FIFA Ultimate Team packs. You're going to put those two in the same category?
No, that's endless.
But you just said, oh, they're both microtransactions. You just
they are both microtransactions.
They're not. But I mean, they're not. They're not. You can't compare something that's a one-time purchase compared to an infinitely buying something, a consumable. Like that's ridiculous. Like FIFA Ultimate Teams packs, they're infinite. They never stop. Orbs from Fire Emblem, they never stop. That is not the same thing as buying something for $1. If a DLC costs $1, that is not a little thing that's $1 or $2. That is not the same. That is not a microtransaction. That's
means small. Transaction means money. Small transaction. It has nothing to do if the transactions are infinite.
That's how people look at microtransactions. People don't look at microtransactions as they look at DLC. Then here's the thing. Then any type of DLC. It's not, okay, well, DLC is only high priced. Is that what you're trying to say? Oh, well, DLC is only priced high. You know, that's the only reason.
No, DLC to me is a collection of content for a set price.
That's not what DLC is, though. You can buy DLC, something that's big, or small, that is just a one-time purchase, and that's what you get, and that's downloadable content, and that's it. That is it. It doesn't matter. That is what DLC is. Microtransactions, and the way that mobile companies say them is like, hey, we're going to continuously microtransaction this game. It is not, people don't say, oh yeah, look at this Fire Emblem Heroes DLC that I got, like with this extra, and they give you free DLC in that game too, or whatever the case is. Free stuff, but they look at it differently. Like everyone looks at it differently. The fact that you're trying to put that in there to make your point on how Nintendo's becoming like EA is ridiculous. The fact that you're trying to put
I never said Nintendo's becoming like EA.
They're on the track.
I know. I said they could. I'm talking about they're at the beginning stages, and as I said, I don't. Okay, well that's the debate. I mean, I guess that's the point of our debate. Two sides. It's a debate. The crowd can decide. It doesn't matter who's right, actually. It's just
no, it doesn't matter who's right. But I wish that you would have put up like the issue that I have here. The issue that I have here is, like I said, you can run your channel however. I will still watch your videos. I will still respect you.
We don't have to agree on this stuff. It's
we don't have to agree. We're not going to agree. But the biggest issue that I have, man, the biggest issue that I have is that like you're doomsday scenarioing it, because EA has been voted the worst company in the world. You know, so to take something like EA and put their name next to Nintendo in that same light, when there are X, Y, A, Z, and B, X, Y, whatever, how many companies in between that are all in between there, but to say it could and leapfrog, literally like the The longest Stretch Armstrong that I've seen in my life. You remember Stretch Armstrong? Like, dude would just stretch his arms so long for things. You know what I'm saying? Like, the longest Stretch Armstrong that I've seen in my life was done by you. I mean, you could have at least went to Ubisoft. You could have went to Activision.
Sure.
You could have went to companies but you went all the way to EA, which is a doomsday scenario.
Well,
that's the problem.
Here's the thing.
That's the biggest problem. Like, you went all the way to EA, and that's ridiculous.
Because I felt like when you're making a comparison, my fear is that they're going to get to EA's level. Now, there's steps along the way. But if I said Nintendo could become the next Activision, no one would understand on that title what I mean by that. What do you mean they're going to become the next Activision?
Who do you like more, Stretch Armstrong or Mr. Fantastic? Who do you like more? Who is your favorite? Which one do you like more, Stretch Armstrong or Mr. Fantastic? Because I'm gonna either label you one of those two if you say they could be. Like, which one do you like more, Prime? You like Stretch Armstrong or you like Mr. Fantastic? Which one?
Stretch Armstrong.
Stretch Armstrong. Okay, let's go. You are Stretch Armstrong in this thing. Like the most. It is reaching. It's like Dalsim times like 15. Remember, like, you know, Dalsim from Street Fighter? Tie those two together. Like, come on. Like this.
All I know is I'm glad we had this debate, because when I'm I'm gonna be like 44 by the time we get to 2030. I'm gonna look back on this and be like, you know what? I was wrong. And I'm gonna have to stand up and salute Player Essence for being right. Or I'm gonna be like, I'm right and nobody cares. All right, let's move on to the next thing.
If you are right, which
I mean, we don't know.
I don't think gamers are going to stand for it. I think that if you say Fire Emblem Echoes was the worst or the worst type of DLC, right? So far, and how much did Fire Emblem Echoes sell compared to the other two? You said it's the worst so far, and did it sell like Fire Emblem Awakening? No. Did it sell like Fire Emblem Fates? No. Did Happy Home Designer sell like other Animal Crossings? No. Did any of those other? Did Amiibo Festival?
Fire Emblem
did Festival do as good as other games? No. Did Animal Crossing the Leaf, new ticket Leaf, or whatever the case is that doing as good as other games? No. So you're sitting here and you're making all these comparisons, saying, I'm scared that it's going to get to this point, but we haven't seen it. We've seen these games flop or not do well, and you're taking and you're picking and choosing mobile, and you're trying to compare it to this and that and this and that, and say they could go this route, and none of it makes sense because those games have flopped, because EA is 10 times worse, and EA got a lot worse real fast and did things even back in the same time frame that you're trying to say they did that in the same time frame. They did worse things like try to take away used games and try to force people to buy the game new. They were doing crappy stuff back then before DLC even got popularized by so many different companies. EA was doing completely horrible things even before then. There's no comparison here. EA got worse way faster, and the proof by me saying that is the fact that they took that online pass thing. FIFA Ultimate Team, by your admission, it's been 15 years of FIFA Ultimate Team. It hasn't been 15 years. I didn't even know DLC's been around for 15 years. So that means, by your own admission, you said FIFA, they've been doing that for 15 years. So they've been doing it very quickly then. They didn't take time to do that. They got bad quickly. If Ultimate Team has been around for 15 years, which you say it is, they got bad quickly then. Because DLC hasn't been around for, I don't even know if DLC's been around for that. I mean, what, 2006? That's when
they
DLC
were. I wasn't the first. I think the first one I saw was when they sold. It was either map packs in Call of Duty or Halo. I can't remember. That might have been the first.
Okay, but like in terms of popularizing DLC, the 6th generation. So if they've been doing FIFA Ultimate Team for 15 years, you completely destroyed your own point by saying that it took time and it took a lot. No, it didn't. They were bad 15 years ago, my guy. So they were bad instantly. So Nintendo's not on the same track as them, because then that means they would have just been as bad, just as fast. EA was bad from the beginning, from when this crap started. But they've been bad since. They've been trashed since then, and Nintendo has had a good amount of time to see if they become as trash as EA, and that hasn't happened. So therefore, I dispute your premise of your whole video, because EA got trashed quickly and Nintendo did not. So that's the basic gist of it right there, man. I think I made my point.
You made your point.
I think I made my point. EA was trashed 15 years ago when they started it. They started taking away people's, trying to quell the used game market. This stupid company, don't get me started. They tried to sit here and take away used games from people 10 years ago. Like, what is it? Or 9 years ago, 9 or 10 years ago, this stupid company started doing this a long time ago before DLC was even popularized. How do you compare this company We're just gonna work.
Yeah, you know.
We're not.
So the debate's over.
This company is trash. EA is complete trash. They've been trash for 15 plus years. Screw EA, and Nintendo better not become EA. 15 years of
well, I think that's one thing.
You were trash 15 years
There's one thing we can agree on. We don't want Nintendo to get anywhere near EA's badness at all. That would be like ripping my heart out if this ever happens. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the first ever Nintendo Prime hosted debate with Player Essence. I'm sure
we gotta do this again. No, we gotta do this again.
There's gonna be more debates, man. Well, you know what I loved about us debating, and I'm gonna say this before I hang up with the audience out there. We both are passionate. We both care. We both respect each other, and that's what makes these debates fun. I had a great time, right or wrong. Much love to you, OJ. Much love to your fan base. Nintendo Prime fan base. Thank you guys so much.
Real quick, Prime, I really just want to say, some people were saying that we needed a moderator. No, we didn't. No, with the moderator, you don't get that passion that Prime did with the Smash DLC. I want that. We're friends.
Yeah, that's why it'd be different if we were enemies. It could have got really bad.
Exactly.
And what did I do? Quickly it came down because
it quickly came down. I said, okay, Prime. I said, hey, let's just calm. Okay, let's calm down. We don't need that because that's why. I mean,
we're passionate.
You want the passion. If we had a moderator, he'd probably quell that and stop it. We don't need that. Next time we do a debate, we're not going to have another one. Like I said, if I do a debate with re-res or something like that, obviously we need a moderator, right? Because re-res. So we need for this one we don't. I think it was good, and like you said, Prime, go ahead and finish it off, dude. Guys, my fans, please, if you want to subscribe to Prime, go subscribe to this man. He's still a passionate Nintendo fan. He's great. So yeah, make sure you subscribe to him if you do like his content. You know.
Yeah. And thank you so much, OJ, for basically this debate happened because you asked me to have a debate. So thank you so much for that. We're definitely, at least I had a good time. I feel there's going to be debates in the future on little things, little or big things we disagree on, just because, you know what? I think everyone, and I'm going to ask on Twitter and after, sure, our fans will all agree. This was good fun, no matter who you believe or who you're into or who you want to listen to. I just got to say, this is a Goldschlager shot. This one is for you, OJ. Thank you so much, man.
I have some iced tea.
Some iced tea. Okay.
Hi, everybody.
Iced tea, Goldschlager.
There we go.
It's pre-night, baby.
Hey, man, you have a good night, Prime. Have a nice evening, dude.
Yeah, you too. Later, guys.
Bye-bye.